wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Amma ba'du. Good morning, honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen, all participants. Welcome and thank you for joining today in our international webinar, The Innovation and Trend Research for Facing Challenge in Society Era 5.0. Today, on Wednesday, 31 of August, 2022, live from Universitas Islam Negeri Mataram. It is a great opportunity for me, Novia Suryani, to be your master of ceremony today. Before that, allow me to greet our honorable guests today that already with us here. First, our Vice Rector, Universitas Islam Negeri Mataram, and also to be our keynote speaker, Professor Dr. Haji Adi Fadli M.Ag. The second, our Vice Dean of Faculty Tarbiyah and Teacher Training, Universitas Islam Negeri Mataram, Dr. Ahmad As'ari MPD. And also our beloved Head of Department Chemistry Education, Mr. Yahdi SPD MSE. And also our Secretary of Department Chemistry Education, Yuli Kusumadewi MSE, and also a lecturer of Department of Chemistry Education, Universitas Islam Negeri Mataram, all the honorable guests and all the participants who already joined us here and also in Zoom meeting. Okay, and also in this opportunity, I would like to greet our honorable speaker, maybe who already with us, and also have a contact with us from their countries. As we know that we have two speakers from several countries. First, I will welcome the Honorable Dr. Muhammad Roil Bilad from University Brunei Darussalam. And the second speaker, welcome the Honorable Dr. Muhammad Tazli Azizan, co-founder of Scholar Malaysia. And the third, the only one, a woman speaker. Here, welcome the Honorable Dr. Dwi Wahyudiati, MPD, our lecturer of Department Chemistry Education, Universitas Islam Negeri Mataram. Well, ladies and gentlemen, before we start our international webinar today, let me inform you that our webinar will be divided in two sessions. The first session is the opening right now, and also speech that will be delivered by our keynote speaker. The second session is presentation that will be delivered by our three speakers. And the last session will be followed by photo session as the last agenda. Now, for not wasting the time, we are going to listen welcoming speech from our Secretary of Chemistry Education. It's my pleasure to invite Mrs. Yuli Kusumadewi MSE to deliver a few sentences today. To Yuli Kusumadewi MSE, the time is yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Ladies and gentlemen, warm and pleasant good morning to all of present here. The Honorable Vice Rector of UIN Mataram, Professor Dr. Haji Adi Fadli M.Ag, the Honorable Vice Dean of the Faculty of Tarbiyah and Teacher Training at UIN Mataram, Dr. Ahmad As'ari MPD, the Honorable Head of Chemistry Study Program, Yahdi MSE, the Honorable of our speaker today, Dr. Muhammad Roil Bilad, Dr. Muhammad Tazli Azizan, and Dr. Dwi Wahyudiati MPD, and all of my dear students and the participants. We always express our gratitude to the presence of God Almighty, who has bestowed His grace and blessing on all of us, so that today we can be brought together to take part in the international webinar. the innovation and trend research for facing the challenges in society era 5.0. On behalf of our study program, I am pleased to welcome all of you to our webinar, where we have the opportunity to share information and knowledge about various innovation in chemistry learning, as well as the development of research in chemistry and chemistry education to improve the ability of chemistry teacher candidates, chemistry teachers, and chemistry lecturers in developing learning in classes and future research. Through the activity, it is expected to create the innovation and meet the demand of the development of science and technology, especially in the field of chemistry and chemistry education. On the other side, since the globalization and technology grow rapidly in nowadays, we need to construct and design our classroom with various approach and method. STEM has become so much popular as a new fundamental approach in building student understanding in science and help them learn about text and context in their learning activities. But rather than maximize the benefit of STEM approach of classroom activities, many of teachers and pre-service teachers still not properly understand about this approach. So, ladies and gentlemen, in this webinar, our theme is the innovation and trend research for facing the challenges in society era 5.0. In connection with this theme, we present several speakers as presenters who will convey and share their experience and knowledge at this webinar. This webinar can be held to the help of support from various parties. For this reason, on this occasion, allow us to express our gratitude to the Dean of the Faculty of Tarbiyah and Teacher Training and all of his staff, to all of the speakers and our fellow committee members who participate in preparing this activity. We realize that in holding this seminar, there are still many shortcomings, both in terms of presentation of event, services, and other limitations. For that, we apologize profusely for the shortcomings. Finally, we hope that the webinar participants will benefit greatly from this activity so that they can create an atmosphere of learning activity in the classroom and research that are better, stronger in quality, and sustainable in accordance with the development of science and technology needed now or needed in the future. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Next, I would like to invite our Vice Dean of Faculty Tarbiyah and Teacher Training to deliver welcoming speech and officially open this webinar. To Dr. Ahmad Asari MPD, the time is yours.
Yang sama-sama kita hormati Bapak Wakil Rektor 1 sekaligus sebagai narasumber kita pada pagi menjelang siang ini, Bapak Profesor Dr. Haji Adi Fadli MAG, Bapak-bapak narasumber dari berbagai negara, ada Bapak Muhammad Roil Pilat PhD, kemudian ada Muhammad Tazli Azizah PhD, ada Bu Dr. Dwi Wahyudiati, yang sama-sama kita banggakan dan hormati Kajur dan Segjur Prodi Tadris Kimia, Fakultas Tarbiyah dan Keguruan UIN Mataram. Sebelum kami lanjutkan, salam Bapak Dekan yang pada hari ini belum bisa bergabung dengan kita karena masih berada di Bandung. Insya Allah beliau hari ini dalam perjalanan balik ke Mataram. Yang kami hormati Bapak Wakil Rektor, alhamdulillah kegiatan akademik demi kegiatan akademik terus berjalan di Fakultas Tarbiyah, termasuk di dalamnya adalah di Prodi Tadris Kimia. Berbagai kegiatan termasuk kegiatan hari ini adalah satu kegiatan research untuk menunjang apa yang menjadi program universitas, mempercepat bagaimana proses, bagaimana dosen dan mahasiswa bisa ikut terlibat secara langsung dalam membangun jaringan, membangun kemampuan dan komoditas dalam penelitian. Sehingga webinar ataupun kegiatan-kegiatan seperti ini diharapkan sebenarnya di samping untuk memberikan semangat kepada Bapak Ibu dosen kita di IPK dan di Kimia, juga untuk membangun semangat karya tulis yang menjadi budaya kita di Fakultas Tarbiyah dan Keguruan Mataram. Hal ini saya kira selaras dengan apa yang diprogramkan oleh Bapak Rektor dan Bapak Wakil Rektor 1, di mana Bapak Wakil Rektor 1 dan Bapak Rektor ingin kemudian menjadikan kampus sebagai kampus budaya menulis, ya, budaya akademik yang tinggi. Dibuktikan dengan berbagai terobosan, termasuk di dalamnya adalah melakukan kegiatan misalkan seperti akselerasi guru besar, mempercepat bagaimana teman-teman dari lektor ke lektor kepala. Nah, tentu ini adalah menjadi penunjang. Jadi kegiatan karya tulis ilmiah, nah ini menjadi penunjang untuk dilakukan oleh Bapak Ibu dosen. Sehingga pada kesempatan ini kami dari fakultas mengucapkan terima kasih kepada Tadris Kimia yang sudah mengadakan kegiatan yang sangat luar biasa, yang bisa menjembatani tentunya Bapak Ibu dosen kita dan bisa memberikan ruang kepada Bapak Ibu dosen kita untuk menjadi penulis yang handal, peneliti yang handal nantinya di kemudian hari. Bapak Wakil Rektor 1, mohon maaf, nanti yang terjemah ini Bapak Wakil Rektor 1 yang terjemah ke dalam bahasa Inggris. Mohon maaf, tadi kebetulan kita diundang sama GM di Telkom untuk persiapan FTK Expo yang akan kita laksanakan hari Senin sampai hari Jumat. Kemudian saya baru berpindah ke BSI karena ada audiensi sebentar dengan BSI terkait dengan FTK Expo. Tetapi alhamdulillah kalau Pak Warek 1 sudah ada di tempat, semua suasana akan mencair. Nah, nanti beliau akan menyampaikan dalam bahasa Inggris dan bahasa Arab. Biarlah Pak Yahdi nanti dan Budu yang menerjemahkan apa yang kita sampaikan ini dalam bahasa Inggris, ya. Karena saya khawatir sekali bahasa Inggris kita nanti terlalu tinggi sehingga tidak dimengerti. Nah, ya. Baik, Bapak Ibu peserta yang berbahagia, selamat menjalankan webinar. Mudah-mudahan webinar ini menjadi awal untuk memicu kita menjadi penulis yang handal, peneliti yang handal. Tentu ini akan berakibat yang positif untuk kebaikan FPK UIN Mataram. Demikian yang bisa kami sampaikan, dan untuk lebih berkahnya secara webinar ini, marilah kita buka dengan sama-sama melafazkan basmalah. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, now it is my pleasure to invite our keynote speaker today to meet Professor Dr. Haji Adi Fadli MAG. The time is yours.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Alhamdulillah wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah Muhammad ibn Abdullah wa ala alihi wa ashabihi wa man tabi'ahum bi ihsanin ila yaumiddin, amma ba'd. Rabbana shrah lana sudurana wa yassir lana umurana wa hlul 'uqdatam min lisanina yafqahu aqwalana ya muallim Ibrahim al-hikmah 'allimna. Alhamdulillah yang terhormat Pak WD3 Dr. Ahmad Asy'ari MPD yang berada di bank ini, BSI ini, tidak tahu apa dalam rangka pencairan dunia keuangan. Semoga segera tercairkan, ya. Kemudian ada Kajur Pendidikan Kimia ini, senior kita, Yahdi MSI, kemudian ada Sekjur, kemudian teman-teman dosen, narasumber kami yang terhormat ini dari Brunei, Muhammad Roil Bilad PhD, kemudian dari Malaysia, Muhammad Tazli Azizan PhD, kemudian yang dari UIN Mataram, ini Dr. Dwi Wahyudiati MPD, ini akan mengikuti kajurnya yang mengikuti narsumnya. Ya, teman-teman mahasiswa, adik-adikku, alhamdulillah di sini tema yang diangkat alhamdulillah baik ya. Luar biasa, maksudnya adalah tentang pembelajaran ya. Pembelajaran yang solutif ya, yang mencerdaskan, yang memberikan kontribusi. Tradisi yang baik itu adalah tradisi yang memberikan solusi. Itu era digital yang kelima itu kan tandanya untuk memberikan solusi-solusi apapun yang lahir dari tradisi-tradisi tren-tren besar era industri ini adalah tujuannya adalah untuk memfasilitasi kita untuk mendapatkan sesuatu ilmu, kemudian tambahannya adalah bermanfaat. Seperti itu. Ada hadis, karena kita di UIN Mataram ya, karena Universitas Islam, maka dasar-dasarnya itu sebabnya pendidikan diterjemah ke dalam bahasa Arab yang tadris, bahasanya itu ya tadris, jadi pendidikan. Padahal itu adalah sama, dan itu konsepnya karena berada di UIN Mataram. Sehingga pembelajaran sains itu harus berdasarkan juga ilmu-ilmu agama. Yang ilmu tentunya ilmu-ilmu agama ini berdasarkan dari Al-Quran dan hadis. Kalau dalam Al-Quran banyak disebutkan tentang profesionalisme kerja ya. Wa ya qaumi i'malu ala makanatikum misalkan. Wahai kaumku, maksudnya kerjalah sesuai dengan profesimu. Jadi harus menyesuaikan profesi kita, apapun dia. Ketika kita menjadi pendidik, berarti ini adalah kunci keberhasilan adalah pendidik. Ada teori yang dulu di teori pembelajaran ya, yang biasa kita kenal adalah al-maddatu khairun minat tariqah. Bahwasanya materi itu lebih bermanfaat atau lebih baik daripada metode. Tapi setelah itu berevolusi kembali menjadi at-tariqatu khairun minal maddah. Sebaliknya, bahwasanya metode pembelajaran itu lebih baik daripada materinya. Tapi sebenarnya ada teori selanjutnya yang baru adalah maksudnya yang harus kita kedepankan yaitu al-muallimu atau al-murabbi, pendidik itu ahammul aham minal maddah wat tariqah. Jadi pendidik itu adalah lebih penting dari yang terpenting dari materi dan metode. Seperti itu. Apa manfaatnya, maknanya kalau misalkan metodenya canggih, fasilitas kita luar biasa, atau kita di smart class, kemudian kita tidak bisa atau pendidiknya tidak bisa memanfaatkannya seperti itu. Jadi itu tidak memberikan kontribusi positif seperti itu. Oleh karenanya, yang menjadi kata kunci dari pendidikan itu, keberhasilan pendidikan adalah guru itu sendiri. Karena kita tahu bahwasanya sistem pendidikan itu ada beberapa ya. Pertama adalah pendidik, itu yang pertama. Kemudian yang kedua adalah peserta didik. Peserta didik ini pun dalam sekarang beberapa tahun ke belakang kemarin itu baru dipakai peserta didik. Kalau yang kemarin sebelumnya adalah murid atau siswa disebutkan. Tapi sekarang istilah peserta didik, maksudnya orang yang selalu beserta pendidik untuk membersamai. Jadi bersama levelnya untuk mendiskusikan banyak hal, untuk mendapatkan ilmu, dan kemudian ilmu itu dimanfaatkan ke masyarakat. Itu kemudian peserta didik diistilahkan. Kemudian yang ketiga apa? Kurikulum. Kurikulum, materinya apa? Setelah materi baru metode. Metode untuk disampaikan materi itu, kurikulum itu. Kemudian setelah metode apa? Evaluasi. Dievaluasi, kemudian kembali menjadi siklus yang berkelanjutan seperti itu. Jadi kunci pertamanya adalah harus dipegang adalah pendidik itu sendiri. Jadi dia harus banyak belajar. Banyak belajar ini tentunya dia harus banyak membaca ya. Banyak membacanya ini bukan hanya dalam bentuk digital ya, maksudnya dalam tapi hasil-hasil penelitian yang harus dia kembangkan. Itu sebabnya ada hasil-hasil penelitian atau di beberapa jurnal atau buku itu mewajibkan untuk paling tidak referensi 5 tahun terakhir. Tapi dalam konsep sejarah itu tidak bisa dipakai misalkan konsep yang itu tetap dibutuhkan misalkan buku referensi atau hasil penelitian yang terupdate, tapi tidak melupakan apa yang di belakangnya. Itu dalam kaedah itu disebutkan al-muhafazah 'alal qadimis shalih wal akhdhu bil jadidil aslah. Jadi memelihara tradisi lama kemudian sambil berbenah dan memberikan yang terbaik bagi tradisi baru yang kita disebut di sini adalah mengedepankan teknologi. Tapi ada beberapa hal yang teknologi ini tidak bisa dapat sampai kepada peserta didik, yaitu adalah budaya ya. Budaya itu tidak bisa tergantikan oleh teknologi. Misalkan kita webinar seperti ini, itu tidak bisa sepenuhnya menjiwai tatap muka yang langsung ya secara physically untuk kita interaksi secara jiwa seperti itu. Itu kekurangan. Tapi bukan berarti kita tidak mau untuk berteknologi. Justru sebaliknya mungkin dua, sebagaimana yang Pak Kajur sampaikan bahwasanya pembelajaran kita adalah blended ya, yaitu kadang online atau offline seperti itu. Nah, konsep yang terbesar atau kunci terbesar dalam keberhasilan pendidikan itu adalah pendidik itu sendiri. Jadi pendidik itu harus meluruskan niatnya. Niatnya itu pertama, ya harus dia niat yang ikhlas untuk muridnya, untuk mengajar muridnya, ya sungguh-sungguh. Terkadang seperti ini, boleh jadi misalkan dengan teknologi yang terbaru, ada misalkan siswa atau peserta didik kita yang gaptek atau yang tidak tahu sama sekali tentang itu. Atau materi dia kita sampaikan terlalu jauh, tapi apa yang dia ilmunya itu belum sampai pada itu. Jadi sebagai pendidik dia harus bersabar. Makanya ada dalam konsep watulu zamanin, istilahnya kunci pendidikan itu adalah kebersamaan yang panjang dalam pendidikan. Maksudnya adalah seperti tadi, sehingga pendidik itu tahu seberapa jauh ilmu dari muridnya, seberapa jauh pengetahuan yang belum dia capai, sehingga dia berikan seperti itu, kemudian dia berikan bagi peserta didiknya sesuai dengan hasba uqulihim, sesuai dengan pemahaman mereka. Ini yang harus konsep yang tidak bisa kita lupakan. Maksudnya itu tradisi lama. Itu sebabnya harus berimbang ya. Dan teknologi ini kita harus pakai secara bijak ya, secara bijak. Kapan kita gunakan secara baik, itu harus kita pahami dulu apa dan bagaimana prosedur dari teknologi itu. Teman-teman semua, alhamdulillah adik-adik yang mahasiswa juga, ini perlu disadari oleh para guru atau pendidik, yaitu untuk tadi pertama niat. Kemudian yang kedua adalah doa guru. Ini maksudnya saya berbicara dalam perspektif agama yang karena ini adalah UIN Mataram ya, untuk bisa memberikan kontribusi. Peran doa dari guru ini sungguh sangat luar biasa. Ada Kiai Maimun Zubair, itu seorang tokoh nasional, itu berpesan, sebodoh apapun muridmu, senakal apapun muridmu, kamu tidak perlu membencinya, tidak perlu memarahinya, tidak perlu dan segala macam. Kamu doakan saja dia. Kamu sampaikan materi, kamu sampaikan pembelajaran, doakan dia bagi keberhasilan jiwa dan raganya. Seperti itu. Karena kita tidak tahu proses itu ya. Boleh jadi yang nakal pada saat kita ajar, kemudian IPK-nya kalau kita hitung dia itu pas-pasan, tapi setelah dia keluar dia menjadi orang yang sukses. Jadi kesuksesan itu tidak sepenuhnya diukur dari status keberhasilan secara nilai di perguruan tinggi ataupun di pendidikan menengah atas atau rendah seperti itu. Jadi ini konsep besar yang harus kita bangun ya seperti itu. Sehingga pendidik itu seperti kiai ya, yang memberikan sebuah pengabdian. Pengabdian ini yang diberikannya itu dengan penuh keikhlasan, kemudian dia berikan itu dengan ikhlas. Ada tokoh nasional kami ini di sini Hamka ya. Hamka ini merupakan tokoh Muhammadiyah, tapi yang luar biasa membaca ribuan kitab, menyatakan bahwasanya apa yang kamu sampaikan dari hati jiwa akan sampai pada jiwa. Jadi ini persoalan jiwa. Ini yang harus kita lakukan. Jiwa pendidik kemudian ke peserta didik harus nyambung seperti itu. Nah, ketersambungan inilah yang membuat keterikatan yang selalu kita itu saling hormati dimanapun kita berada. Mengapa? Karena ilmu ini adalah ilmu yang hitungannya dalam bahasa hadis muttasilus sanad, maksudnya ilmu yang nyambung sampai kepada Nabi. Kalau nyambung sampai Nabi berarti tradisi besar dari Islam yang besar, kemudian sampai kepada tradisi lokal kita sesuai dengan adat istiadat kita modifikasi sebagaimana tadi kaidah usuliyah yang tadi bahwasanya kita memelihara tradisi lama yang baik, kemudian kita mengambil dengan tradisi baru yang terbaik, kita modifikasi itu untuk memberikan yang terbaik kepada peserta didik kita dengan tujuan adalah kita mengabdikan diri sebagai hamba dan khalifah di sisi Allah. Mungkin itu yang dapat saya sampaikan untuk beberapa kata kuncinya. Terima kasih banyak para narasumber. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Okay, thank you very much for keynote speaker today, Professor Dr. Haji Adi Fadli, MAG. Well, ladies and gentlemen, before we close our first session today, let me get some documentation. So let all participants, you can open your camera and give our best smile for photo session. Okay, committee? Who standby? Siapa yang standby? Okay. Ya, untuk partisipan ya silahkan Bapak Ibu dosen juga yang belum mengaktifkan kameranya dipersilakan untuk mengaktifkan kamera. Kita akan adakan sesi foto bersama untuk mengakhiri sesi pertama ini. Kita akan mulai, ini ada 5 slide. Kita mulai. Oke, silahkan yang belum mengaktifkan kamera. Oke, kita mulai dari slide yang pertama ya. 1, 2, 3. Sudah? Oke, lanjut untuk yang slide kedua, silakan. Adik-adik mahasiswa yang mungkin belum mengaktifkan. Oke. Sudah? Oke ya, 1, 2, 3. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us for first session today. Maybe we have to finish our session today, and before we move to the second session, we will take a technical break for 5 minutes. So you can get your time for 5 minutes before we start again our webinar. Thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam
warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Man. Break. Cuma break nanti ada. Ya, kena duluan. Ada Prof. Mujib, Diana, kemudian nanti siang langsung di bandara. Ya, nanti. Ya.
Terima kasih Nek.
Allah, ada narsumnya. Nanti deh.
Boleh ditulis sekarang.
Sini. Dari situ. Di sini?
Biar speakernya langsung ke.
Oh iya boleh.
Gak apa-apa di depan, Pak.
Bisa kok ini di ini Pak Ayub ini. Speakernya bisa jadi gini.
Oh, bisa digeser.
Ya, bisa. Sana aja di bawah.
Iya, nanti.
Iya. Ini kurikulum kita enggak Pak, mau pergi.
Di kanan.
Saya udah keluar belum sih? Udah ya. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Okay, welcome back again to our international webinar. Now we will start our second session, but before that, I would like to greet our honorable speaker today. Welcome the Honorable Dr. Muhammad Roil Bilad from University Brunei Darussalam. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Okay, how are you today?
I'm okay, thank you. Alhamdulillah.
Okay, thank you for joining us today. And the second speaker, welcome the Honorable Dr. Muhammad Tazli Azizan, the co-founder of Scholar Malaysia. Good morning, Doctor.
Good morning. Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam. Have a nice day today, okay?
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Okay, the third speaker, the only one woman speaker today, welcome the Honorable Dr. Dwi Wahyudiati, MPD. Our lecturer of Department Chemistry Education, Universitas Islam Negeri Mataram. Good morning, Dr. Dwi. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, this session will moderated by Mr. Sarifatul Mubarak, MPD. He is a lecturer of Department Chemistry Education. So Pleasure for me to invite our moderator. Please join us, Mr. Sarifatul Mubarak, MPD.
Hello, everyone. Good morning for all of you. Okay, I think we are going to the main discussion session. Good morning to all of the speakers, Honorable Mr. Dr. Muhammad Roil Bilad, and then Mr. Dr. Tazli Azizan. Welcome to both of you, and my colleague, Dr. Dwi Wahyudinati, and of course to all of the participants for today in our international webinar. It's a pleasant and a really gratitude for all of us to have such kind of discussion for this morning. For any of you who have curious about our speakers today, I will introduce a little bit about all of the speakers. The first one is Muhammad Roil Bilad. He is a lecturer from, and now is associate professor in University of Brunei Darussalam, and doing a lot of research in chemistry. And today he will discussing with us about the trend of research in chemistry. And then the second speaker is Dr. Muhammad Tazli Azizan, the co-founder of Scholar Malaysia, and have also a quite bright background. Previously, he was an associate professor from University of Petronas Malaysia, and then now he is doing a lot of things in Scholar Malaysia, and also a lot of topic and subject in chemistry and also in chemistry education. Now he is focusing in developing the methods and a lot of things in developing skills for educators. And the last speakers is my colleague, Dr. Dwi Wahyudinati, MPD. She focusing on collaborate in research and looking for ethnical research like ethnoscience, especially ethnoscience in chemistry. So I hope we will have a great discussion for today from various background from all our speaker. For the rule of the discussion, we will have 30 minutes for each speaker to deliver the idea and the topics based on the theme that we have shared. And then after that, we will have a discussion and question session from all of the participants. So if all our participants have a question, you can raise your hand later, or you can start by writing your question in a chat session below. To cut straight to the discussion, we will give Mr. Dr. Muhammad Roil Bilad to share the idea and the discussion. Place and time will be yours, sir.
Can you see my slide?
Yeah.
Okay.
Bisa di-non kan?
I have 30 minutes. I thought I have 45 minutes. Okay, fine. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And very good morning to all of you. First of all, I would like to thank the committee of this international webinar to invite me share my opinion. I think I won't share really my research in this opportunity. Thank you, Mr. Yahdi, who first contacted me, Mr. Sarifatul, we have been communicating well, and thank you for all important person in UIN Mataram. Okay, I see here Mr. Vice Rector Prof. Dr. Adi Fadli, Deputy Dean Dr. Ahmad Ash'ari. We have also many important person in the structure of the university. I think that's a good support from the management. Okay, I'm very glad to be here, and let's see what I can share. I hope it will be useful. Okay, I noticed that we have a very broad audience, so the talk a little bit tailored to researcher or lecturer, but I will try to moderate it as far as I can, so that the student can also gain something on what I am trying to convey. Okay. So I'll talk basically in three steps. Okay, three topics. First, I'll remind us a little bit again on research ecosystem and how we place that in our academic curriculum. Okay, then it will go to the main topic, which is not a topic I really focus on, which is the research trend in chemistry education for sustainable development, as requested by the committee. Instead of going into showing what is the trend, I'm going to share how can we pick the trend and how can we be part of it. And lastly, so how can we involve ourselves? This is applicable not only to the lecturer but also to the student, to be a research part of the research community, and how can we develop impactful research so we can be the trend, so we can be not only following the trend but probably trendsetter in research. Okay, when we talk about industrial revolution, because it's stated in the theme, we got a lot of different things, but actually all of those things are happening to us. For example, I will start with IR 2.0 in education. It is, I think, the classroom style of teaching is the one of the example of the IR 2.0. I think that's far back. And then automation, we have system in education, IR 4. Now we are practicing IR 4.0, which we try to use a communication technology. And in IR 5, actually, it is branded as seamless co-integration between human, machine, and technology. Okay, so how can we do that in education, especially in chemistry education? I think Dr. Tazli will discuss more on this one, because he is really into the education later on. But it's more like implementation of new technology in chemistry education. Okay, but out of all of those things that persist till today is that we place research in a high regard in our education. Okay, for example, close to 5 to 10% of the credit normally in any undergraduate program will be allocated to the research. In our case, penulisan, in your case probably penulisan proposal and research, penelitian, skripsi, and so on. A lot of the credit hours are allocated to those subjects, which highlight how academics, university rate the importance of research, even in the current education. Okay. Therefore, I'm going to share a little bit my thought on this research and why it is so important in the beginning. Okay, so if we refer to science, so the broad definition will be science is the pursuit of knowledge through systematic method. And scientific research is actually the activity that Yeah, I highlight the activities for the purpose of contributing toward science by systematic collection, interpretation, and evaluation of data in structured and planned manner. One of the best illustration I found in the internet about this process can be seen from this short video. It is made for a PhD process, but actually a PhD is a training to get
I spent so long just wondering. For years I was adrift, directionless and wayward, lost like a swallow on a cliff. But slowly I found purpose and my life became more clear. I found my destination, yeah, but now where do I go from here? 'Cause I'm already there, I'm already everywhere. I'm already there, I'm already everywhere. I've got a wife, 2 kids, and a picket fence. Everything was hazy, now it's making sense. Alright, I made it, so now what?
So it's basically the science process is a process to create more knowledge. Okay, that is why I make another simple analogy here. So imagine that we have all of the knowledge that human being now today, we can put inside this this circle. Okay, and then what research and scientific research do is try to push the border of the knowledge. So if you look here, I color it. It's know is pengetahuan, knowledge, what we know, and then actually what we do is to spread the edge. So scientific research, they produce knowledge. Okay, related to the topic that we are discussing today, it is it is to find out what is actually research or scientific activities that related to the chemistry education and sustainable development. Okay, and then to be able to capture the trend, we need to know how the system works. So how this knowledge is shared, how this knowledge expand. Okay, so it goes through research process, and the outcome of the research process is actually the new knowledge, and the new knowledge is shared through what we call as publication. So this is the journal publication. We mentioned about this in the introduction before. And then this publication is, so it is the way we report new finding, new knowledge. What this means is a small push in the boundary of knowledge we can find in every, okay, ideally we can find in one journal publication. So when you read one research paper published probably today, ideally, I said ideally because things might not be ideal. It contains new knowledge, because one of the criteria for those publications is new knowledge. Okay, a contribution to the science and technology. And normally it is very hard for if we are not part of the community to find out that. But thanks to the Industrial Revolution number 4, we have access to scientific database. Okay, we have things like ISI Web of Knowledge, Science Citation Index here, Crossref, Google Scholar is the easiest and handy database that we can access, and we have Scopus here. Scopus is one of the most used database, and I think for the lecturer in Indonesia, Scopus is used quite well in a lot of things. And that looks into what, for example, I want to know what science is developed by UIN. Okay, then we can look into UIN's database. So here I try to do search to know what is research outcome that produced by Universitas Islam Negeri Mataram, and I found about 15 documents only. But that's not all, I think. And then we see some of the reason is I noticed if you go down here that actually probably the author, the lecturer in UN, okay, they write the affiliation not in exactly the same way, resulting in different indexing in database. For example, here you see State Islamic University UIN of Mataram, and then we see UIN Mataram, Universitas Islam Negeri Mataram, and so on. So you can see very limited, and I think it is a good momentum for UIN Mataram to publish more research, so that the university the university will be recognized as one of the research university. Okay, and then in this opportunity, I will also share some of the work I have done in Indonesia as well. Okay, you see that one. So that is how the science is communicated. And then the importance of this research in our teaching education, I think, can be summarized into what we call in the classic curriculum as the trivium. Okay, it's mean the place where three road meets. Okay, in the past, before the formal university or formal teaching, people only teach. People only learn three things, which is grammar, logic, and rhetoric. Grammar is basically knowledge about the fact, data, term, basic skill. Okay, those are the basic knowledge. Okay, categorized as grammar, and then we have a logic, how fact fit together, what and why, and rhetoric. All of these three is what we call as the true learning. And by thinking deeper into our curriculum structure, we always put this final year project or final year research project, or what you call as skripsi, in the end, so that student or learner will try to combine the three, okay, grammar, logic, and rhetoric, into achieving the true learning, which is the mastery of the subject. So still in our current curriculum, the classic approach of trivium being implemented either directly or indirectly in the curriculum. Okay, so my second topic about the research trend, but of course, picking the trend in chemistry education is a field too broad. So what I'm going to share instead is I will show you how can we do it. So, okay, so these are the QR code that you can scan, and then you can go one by one. For example, here on the left, it is to find out which is the top journals based on the Google Scholar indexing. I will go through it later on. Okay, the one in the middle here, basically we can use this link to find out what is the top article based on custom keyword or custom search by authors. If we know some authors working on some particular area we are interested in, we can look into this and then find out who are there. We can also use Scopus database. So what can you see is, for example, I think I will just go first to the slide before I go to the website. So if we go to that first QR code, and you will see basically these are the category of the top journal by Google Scholar. Okay, related to our topic is on education. So it is under social science and then subcategories of education. And you can see here, you can click one by one in the link. what I find relevant to Tadris of chemistry most likely is cognitive science, education here, education technology, higher education, sustainable development, teaching and learner education. If you click this subcategory, it will bring you to the list of top journal, scientific journal on this. Okay, and then I'm going to go up and open this. Okay, for example, top journal with categories. This one is general category. Okay, this is a general category. So we want to go with more specific. This is like the old journal. From this one, we know that Nature is the top journal based on Google Scholar indexing. Okay, Nature is the top journal. New England Journal of Medicine, Science, IEEE CVF Conference on Computer Vision and Pattern Recognition. Okay, these are the top journals available indexed by Google. We can go more detail into subcategory of our interest. For example, as I mentioned below, education is under social science. Okay, you go to social science, and then again, under this category is computer and education. You can see the journal, and we can also go beyond this and find out the category. Okay, you can go to, for example, I will go to which one? Education. Okay, education. Then you find out a list of journal here. Okay, list of journal, and we know that teaching and teacher education is the top journal. It is based on H5 index. What does that mean? Basically, the trend or the impact of journal is rated by the number of citation, how many times other authors cite that particular article. So this ranking, okay, this ranking is based on H5 index. Basically means that they count for the last 5 years of the article. Okay, so the number here, H5 index, is the largest number age such that the article published in this range of year have at least age citation. Okay, you can go into this one and define later on because we have limited time. So by knowing this one, then you can go into teacher and teaching and teacher education. For example, you can simply Google that one. This is the journal, and then from that you can check what is the current issue. Okay, article. Then you find this is the new volumes, and then you can find screen from the title. So this is the one way to find out what trend of research in chemistry teaching. Okay, another way is for probably you already done this one. Okay, normally automatically we will go and use Google Scholar. So in Google Scholar you can do it by keyword. I'll try to click here. Then you find out, for example, chemistry education. Okay, and then you can find easily. For example, here I think I've shared. Okay, for example, here we do chemistry education, where we know that there is a review in. So and then we can make classification. Okay, we can make classification which year we want. We can custom the year. Of course, when we talk about the trend, we are talking about now. So we can limit the search to the current year, which is year 2022. And there we see the most relevant article is augmented reality in chemistry education. So you know that this buzzword, augmented reality, is somehow being implemented in chemistry education. And then if you look here down, you see here exploring the connection between system thinking. So you see it's a system thinking is one of the things that is being considered currently, okay, in chemistry education. You see the third article also talking about system thinking and so on. And if you go more detail, so this is the actual link. the Hexa learning domain, flipped classroom, you see mechanistic reasoning, then what? And you can see here, I'm not well versed in the terminology, so I cannot really share the detail about those. But you see that by using the link that I provide here, you can go and find out yourself what is actually the trend in chemistry education. Another way is by using outer. I will not show it. I don't have enough time. But the last and probably more reliable way is by using the Scopus database. The problem is that not all of you are subscribed. I have a personal subscription in Scopus database. So here in Scopus, we can also explore the search, and then what you can do, you can find out this article, and then you can sort it. Okay, you can sort it based on, for example, year. So you see here means that we have the most current research and knowledge on chemistry education. The good thing is you can go to the left and then you can customize your search. Like, for example, you only want year 2022, 2021, and you can, we call it limit the search. And you see here that there are okay, 1,657 documents that you can find. And then from this search, you can narrow down the search again by using more detailed keyword. So this is how the practice I have been doing in finding what is the trend in research for particular topic or subject. Okay, in this case, related to chemistry education. So for me, to give you what is the current trend, that will be very hard. So what I'm doing now is I give you tools to look for by yourself on how can we explore and use the information technology to find out those information. Okay, I'll go to my last. So now we know the importance of the research in our university curriculum and education. We know how to identify what is trending in research for particular topic of our interest. And the last part of my talk will be how can we develop or be part of those research. Okay, this is particularly relevant to the academics lecturers in UIN. So I think it is highly related to what Mr. Adi Fadli mentioned earlier. The most important thing is us, which is the researcher. Okay, and then the affairs of team member, the funding and facilities. That is quite important. That's I think the main pillars of good research. Okay, so the outcome of research that we have just seen before was knowledge, which is shared through the publication, journal publication, patent. If you have an inventive step and potential commercialization, we go for patent. And it's cycle. So patent, go commercial, create business, employ citizen, we generate products, services, and so on and so on. So it's basically, if you look into the all developed countries in our world, all of them rely heavily on research. Okay, they develop new technologies, new industries, new services, and lead the way and become the most developed nation on earth. Okay, of course we are Southeast Asian country, Malaysia, Brunei.
Kalau kita nggak kasih nama kan.
Emang nggak ada nama?
Nggak ada. Terus gini.
I'm so sorry for that.
Yeah, but we are I think
to all of the participants, I'm sorry to all of the participants who haven't mute their speakers. I have you mute the speakers and let the
thank you.
Muhammad Roy will be let to speak. Okay, please.
Thank you, sir. Okay, So I think I make summary of what it need. I think when Mr. Fadli earlier mentioned about this one is the importance of the teacher or pendidik. Okay, the same thing in doing a good research. I think the most important aspect of those is the researcher. Okay, and good researcher must be honest, intelligent, organized, committed, effective in communication, and so on. So basically, you can say that good researcher must be a good and smart person. If you're a good person and smart person, you'll be a good researcher. Okay. And then if I go back into the model of the knowledge I mentioned earlier, so basically I will remind again that what research does is actually to push this boundary of the knowledge. Okay, push the boundary of knowledge. We produce new knowledge. My daughter asked me, what are you doing? What do you make? And I will say, I make science, I make knowledge. So this is what we do as an academics, as lecturers. So, but the thing is, when we do research, okay, there are research that highly impactful. Okay, so these are actually the one really in the edge of the knowledge. Then we have a research with medium impact and low impact. Of course, we always want to be in this range. Okay,
I'm sorry to interrupt,
always want to be.
You have 5 more minutes to deliver your slides.
Oh yeah. I think we'll have.
Okay.
Yeah. That one, and then how can we achieve those? I think what we can do is that first we need to focus on what we are expert on. Okay. Another thing is that of course we are developing countries which have less resources, limited funding, for example, limited access to other resources. So we need to be highly efficient in using the resource. The next thing is being creative and pragmatic. I think here we should be able to think out of the box. Okay, and I'll mention about organic spin-off. When we start our research, we develop organically to we can with what available. And then lastly, collaborative. I think forum like this one, where people share the experience, can be a starting point to collaborate. Okay, I say here there's a pragmatic term. If you can't beat them, join them. So normally we'll try to compete, like what's happening here. We try to compete, go first to achieve the goals. But if you can't win, then probably you better work together. Okay, so this is my personal experience. I was trained for doing a particular research in membrane bioreactor, but now I spin off my research organically, okay, according to available resources, I think, and ideas I have, and then I've been developing quite a good research portfolio. Okay, so far I have 227 Scopus publication with more than 4,000 citations, and you see in my Google Scholar as well, it's already more than 5,000 citations. And last year, okay, although with highly limited resources, I will say, I managed to do good research, good publication, and compete with others. The key is to have one thing. Okay, I'll skip this part. Okay, the key is actually to master the research process. Okay, to master the research process, and in doing so, we need to consider the cost constraint and so on. This is an example of what I do with undergraduate student. Okay, with undergraduate student. So with the proper planning of doing research, we can conduct research with limited resources. And this work has been published in quite good journal. It's Bio Research Technology Report. I have another example of my research plan with my undergraduate student as well, and we managed to publish in quite good article. So this achievement was achieved when I was in Malaysia teaching in University Technology Petronas. But now I'm also active in teaching in Undikma, Universitas Pendidikan Mandalika. And I can show you that here we have quite a lot of paper as well published in top journal. One here is from Dr. Mashur. We work together. Okay, in quite recently, 2021, we also have a journal in 2022, and I also have publication from final year project of Undikma student. So it's from Tadris Chemistry as well, similar to the department organizing this event. So with that, I will end my presentation. We will have a nice discussion later on, inshallah. Thank you, MC. That's all from me.
Okay, thank you very much. It's really a gratitude for us since we have competent speakers, the best 250 researcher in chemical engineering. So I think asking a lot of tips and suggestions from Mr. Muhammad will be later. And I want to remind to all of the participants, please keep muting your speakers so the speaker won't be bothered by other voices from outside. And if you have a question, you can ask the question later in the discussion session. And you can ask us to the speakers by bahasa Indonesia, either with English. Jadi nanti para peserta boleh menanyakan langsung kepada para narasumber baik dalam bahasa Indonesia maupun menggunakan bahasa Inggris. And if you have the question now, you can put the question in a chat room below. Jadi kalau ada pertanyaan yang ingin ditanyakan dari presentasi para narasumber, itu bisa langsung ditanyakan di sesi chat. Nantinya akan kita bahas ketika sesi diskusi. Kita akan lanjut dulu untuk the next speakers. So we will continue to the next speakers. Mr. Dr. Muhammad Tadri Azizan will talking to us about how we provide a better environment in chemistry education, especially in teaching and learning approach in the classroom and outside the classroom. To Dr. Muhammad Tadri Azizan, please, times and place.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And very good morning to everyone.
Waalaikumsalam.
Can you hear me clearly?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Thank you. So my name is Muhammad Tadri Azizan. Thank you very much to UIN Mataram for inviting me to this session. As been introduced, I am currently the co-founder of Scholar Malaysia. I used to work in the higher education before. Inshallah, I'll be also continuing working in higher education after this. But for this particular year, 1 year I'm focusing on actually developing the company, Scholar Malaysia. So Scholar Malaysia is actually a company that is focusing on educators training. So we try to empower the teachers, the academics in the practice of the teaching and learning. So as being introduced as well, I am actually, my background is chemical engineering before, so I know a little bit about chemistry education. I'm also was a chemical engineers lecturer for the past 18 years. So without further ado, let me share with you my slide. Okay, so I hope you can see this. All right. So let me bring you here. So the topic today that I'm going to share with you is about developing innovation in teaching and learning for higher education. So what we're going to talk about is actually in general about how can we develop innovation, okay, especially for the teachers, for the academic staff. If let's say you want to convey the teaching and learning approach in the class, for example, you are teaching chemistry, okay. So how best that we can do that? Is it always a lecture? Would it always a lecture? Good to have a lecture, or do we have any other approach to do so? And of course, if let's say, as I think pointed by Dr. Roil just now, when we're talking about all the innovation, all the research being made in chemistry education, you can start to see some keywords there. I noticed that there is a keyword there showing flipped classroom, augmented reality, all those sort of things that is actually part of innovation in teaching and learning. But if let's say right now we are considering of doing innovation in teaching and learning, so how can we do so? How can we start doing the innovation in teaching and learning? So this is the topic that I'm going to bring you and to share with all of you. But before we continue with the session, can I request every one of you, if let's say you can go to Mentimeter, okay, I already copied the link and I put in the chat section. So you can click on the link and you can respond to this question. Why we have to innovate in our teaching and learning? Kenapa kita perlu berinovasi di dalam pengajaran dan pembelajaran kita? Why we have to do so? So if you can go to the menti.com with the code 98513702, or you can actually click on the link as I put in the chat, so you can actually respond to me. Kenapa sebenarnya kita perlu berinovasi di dalam teaching and learning, di dalam pengajaran dan pembelajaran kita.
Okay, to all the participants, buat semua peserta, boleh untuk coba masuk ke menti.com dengan memasukkan kode 9851 13702.
9851 13702, betul.
Yeah.
Okay. So I have 2 responses so far. I'm giving you the next 30 seconds. So if you can respond to this, the more the merrier. Okay. To be honest, but while we're waiting for the response, I like the vision by current Indonesian education minister about the needs to revamp and to empower the critical thinking, the growth mindset. So these are among the things actually that we need to do in our teaching and learning to make sure that our students be able to achieve those particular things, to have the growth mindsets. And I think some of you share here to have critical thinking, follow the trend today for development of ourselves in education, to increase our student ability in developing their mindset. Okay, things changes and we need to adapt. What else? Why shouldn't we stick to just typical lecture? Just give talk and talk and talk all the time. Why do we have to change it? Why do we have to make difference in our class? Kita ada sini 97 orang. Tapi baru ada 3 respon. So I hope that you can more and more can participate. It's okay. I don't know who said what. This is anonymous. To develop ourselves in education. Okay.
Any other participant might join the menti.com to answer the question. Kenapa kita perlu berinovasi di dalam pembelajaran kita di kelas?
To improve the ability of student in learning. Okay. I can see similar to improve our knowledge. Yeah, similar pattern I can observe here. That all of you feel that the needs for innovation in our teaching and learning is because we need to improve, to make sure that our students acquire critical thinking, to make sure that our students have a better mindset, to make sure that there are growth in their education. Because with the innovation method, the teacher can turn on the class and build an active and creative atmosphere of students. Yes, because we want them to be active, we want them to focus, to engage with us for fun, okay, for fun learning, right? And to motivate the students to know more and to learn more. All right, that's a good one. Okay, while you are responding to this post, let me bring you back to the slides.
I think it's okay for all other participants also responding in Bahasa.
Ya,
So don't be
boleh,
afraid
boleh.
of responding in bahasa Indonesia. Anda boleh
Saya boleh
menjawabnya dalam
faham.
bahasa Indonesia, so the engagement will be higher.
Ya.
Okay,
Boleh
please
boleh
continue.
saja dalam bahasa Indonesia ya. Bisa, bisa. Alright. So,
Okay.
apa yang kita perlu buat? What we have to do when we want to make sure that there is innovation in the class. The first thing first, we need to identify what are the problems. What are the problems that happen in our class? That is the first important thing. What we have to do in order for us to start with the teaching and learning innovation. For example, like lack of engagement, that could be one of the problem. The students are not active in the class, for example. The students feel sleepy in the class, for example. The students are not communicating. The students are not be able to answer my question, for example. So these are actually the problems that could come into our class. So these are the things that we need to identify first. So doing innovation is not just simply because, oh, I just want to follow the trend, or just because that everybody else is doing it, so I just want to do it. But we have to make sure that first thing first, that in order for us to conduct the innovation in our class, we have to first identify what are actually the problem. What are actually the problem that happen in our class? What would be the future problem if we don't address this first in our class? So that is the reason why we have to conduct the innovation in teaching and learning. So let us dig down further. Okay, let's go back to mari kita pergi semula kepada Mentimeter ni. Okay, thank you. Ada lagi di sini ya. Okay, kita pergi ke next slide. Apakah masalah-masalah yang para dosen selalu hadapi di dalam kelas? Ataupun maybe among the student also can share, what would be your usual problem in the class? Apa selalunya masalah-masalah yang berlaku di dalam kelas? Berkaitan dengan teaching and learning, berkaitan dengan pembelajaran, berkaitan dengan pengajaran. What would be your usual problems when it comes to this?
The next question in the menti.com is, kira-kira masalah apa saja yang biasa muncul di dalam kelas yang Anda hadapi sebagai pengajar maupun sebagai siswa?
Saya mau membawa ke sini. I want to bring everyone you to this direction so that we can be reflective about how best that we can actually innovate in our class. Okay, so it will be good if let's say you can start to reflect, muhasabah diri ya. Apa sebenarnya, what would be menyeimbangkan diri dengan keadaan? Okay, to balance self. Student doesn't have high interest in our study. Okay, maksudnya students take the course but they don't have the interest. Students lack of focus. Okay, good. Keep coming. Mahasiswa malas dalam membaca materi sebelum kuliah dimulai. Okay, that is also Malaysian problem, not only Indonesian problem. What else? Yeah, because now they have gadgets, right? We so engaged with all these short videos, TikTok, Reels and so on. So membaca itu satu tugasan yang sangat berat. Okay, satu it's very difficult things to do. Okay, keep coming keep coming and share with me what are the problem. But this is a usual problem: lack of engagement, lack of focus, no interest. Mahasiswa kesulitan menghubungkan antara level submikroskopik dengan, okay, this is cognitive issues. Kecanduan game online, cognitive issues where they could not relate what they've been learning from one topic to another topic. They don't have motivation to learn. Okay, mengantuk di materi yang bukan favourite-nya. Ya, if let's say this is not favourite, they just fall sleepy. Siswa kurang fokus dan tidak memahami materi yang bersifat abstrak. Okay, when it is abstract, tidak fokus. So this is the issue. Don't think it's just Indonesian issues or university issues. This is what I've seen elsewhere.
Yeah.
And these are some things that we, as the educators, we should try to think how to solve it. But before we deep dive further, okay, just now step 1 is identify the problem. When we are actually having a course ataupun program ataupun modul ataupun subjek tertentu ataupun subjek yang kita pelajari, this particular course, they have actually 3 main important elements. One is actually what is the learning outcome. What is our intended learning outcome from this subject? When we are teaching this subject, what is the learning outcome? The second one is we're going to look at the assessment and how do we assess so that the student achieve the learning outcome. And the third one is the instruction. Okay, it is the instruction, which means that what are the deliverables? How do we deliver the material inside the class? Is it just only by just giving lecture, or there are actually plenty others? So when we look at this, this is the area of innovation that we can pick off, either actually to improve on our assessment, or to improve on our instruction, or we can improve the curriculum as a whole. So there are actually three main important elements that we can look at. But before we deep dive further into innovation in teaching and learning, we have to look at what is the grand challenge that we are going to face in 21st century. For example, like when we talk about science and technology, there are so many future problems that we could not anticipate right now. There are future problems that is unknown. And when we want to solve the unknown future problems, it is not in the textbook. For example, we are talking about COVID-19. You know, when we learned 20 years ago, there's nothing about it in the textbook, right? So if let's say if we just think about covering the syllabus, we just actually, and then without fulfilling the right skills for the students, this is where actually the student will just do not know how to solve this particular problem when they grow up, when they become the future graduate, for example, when they work later on, when they become the future workers, they do not know how to solve the problem. The most important part that we have to instill right now is the right skills for the students. The right skills, the creative thinking, critical thinking, the creativity, communication, collaboration, all of these are very important so that they can be able to solve these particular problems. Because all of these problems is evolving, okay? And if let's say we are not preparing our students to solve this particular problem, then that's why we are being left behind. And for example, how many of us realize that there's becoming little and little, fewer and fewer lands available for farming right now, for agricultural approach, because there are lots of arid lands, lands that which we cannot use for agricultural purpose right now. So if let's say we have only then if we have the right knowledge and the right skills, only then we'll be able to solve this particular problem. And on top of that, if we're looking at the needs of the skills in the future, for example, like analytical thinking, active learning, complex problem solving, how do we instill this in our class? Okay, how do we make sure that critical thinking can be there in our class, creativity in our class? So these are the very important part that we have to figure out how best that we could deliver our materials with these particular skills in this is being embedded in, is being infused in our class. Okay, and of course, on top of that, other problem that we are facing is, for example, our student facing this kind of illnesses. For example, like our student facing amnesia. You know, for example, like when they learn something and then they forget. Okay, they forget about it. And how about fantasia? Fantasia is actually misconception, right? Students, we taught something else to them, but they are thinking about something else. So this is fantasia. And also students would have inertia. For example, like they learn about chemistry, they learn about organic chemistry, non-organic chemistry, but they do not know how to apply it, where to apply it. So this is also another illnesses that we have to overcome. So in order for us to overcome this kind of illnesses, this is where actually we come up with innovation. All right. So the step 2 that we're going to look here is actually identify existing innovation to solve our problem. So the innovation that we should want to do is, this is where actually we need to be a bit hardworking, go and find the research that has been done somewhere else, someone who actually ada sesiapa yang sudah melakukan kajian-kajian terkini. This is where actually we need to search their innovation, and this is where actually it would be able to solve our problem. Because when we want to do the innovation, as I mentioned earlier, we want to do either curriculum innovation, we want to change the way how we teach, for example, and we may want to also change the way how we assess our students. So that is where we talk about assessment. So when we have this particular problem, student tidak fokus, student tidak engage, students tidak ada kemahiran kognitif, for example. So how do we solve this problem? Which particular area of this that will be relevant to solve that problem? Perhaps I would say instructional methods lah. Okay. Tapi ada kemungkinan if let's say the students are not in terms of the students punya critical thinking maybe not that very high, maybe we want to look into assessment. But for example, like the curriculum right now does not suit with the trend of education 4.0, IR 4.0. Perhaps this is where actually we may want to relook at curriculum innovation. So that's why it is very, very important for us to see which particular area that we want to focus on. Okay, I'm going to skip this part. And the step 3 is we need to identify what would be the guiding principles in the innovation involved. Okay, here this is where actually we need to understand the theories. Of course, we are actually from myself, I am from chemical engineering background, and the docents here are from chemistry education, for example. Maybe we are not familiar about the teaching and learning theories.
Mhm.
But then, as the educators, we need to learn. This is very important for us to learn, to understand at least some little bit, a few things about the educational theories. Only then it will help us to make sure that our teaching and learning become better in our
Meaning-
class. Okay? So, why do we need to know the guiding principle and framework? Yes, as I mentioned earlier. Otherwise, what we're gonna do is we're gonna be, I don't know in Indonesia bahasa, tapi kalau di Malaysia kita kata shock sendiri. Apa dia di sana ya?
Sorry.
Shock sendiri. Dia suka-suka sendiri. Dia it's just
Oh,
apa?
hebring. We call heboh.
Heboh-heboh je. Okay.
Yeah,
So
hebring.
if let's say if we do not know, if for example we just think, okay, I want to do this, I want to do that, and you just think about it without referring to others, without actually relating it to the educational theories and principles, this
Semau
is where
sendiri.
this is where things will go wrong. Okay, because sometimes our innovation may not be solid, may not be strong enough to make the change, to bring the change that we want in our class. So that's why it is why it is very important for us to understand the guiding principles. For example, like the simple as constructive alignment. Constructive alignment was introduced by Professor John Biggs in 1999. He mentioned clearly that there are three main elements that have to be aligned together. One is actually the learning outcomes. The second one is teaching and learning activities. And the third one is the assessment. So if let's say we want to make sure that the student achieve the outcome that we want, the students are engaged with the material, the student have critical thinking and so on, it is not only that we, for example, our interest is actually to bring the student to achieve higher order thinking skill, creativity or critical thinking. And therefore, we put in the assessment. Assessment should be testing the student on critical thinking and creativity. Give a tough question to them so that they have to think further. But in our class, what we are going to do, what we did just is actually just giving lecture, bercakap saja. We just give lecture without any activities involved to train the student to have critical thinking. So this is not aligned. Okay, this is not aligned. So if let's say we really want the student to have critical thinking and the assessment is on critical thinking, the activities in our class have to be on the critical thinking as well. So the activities, it has to be active learning. It requires the student to involve more. This is where the student-centered learning comes in. Okay, and therefore another parameters that we want to make sure that in our innovation it should fulfill these four lenses. First thing first is, for example, knowledge-centered, learner-centered, assessment-centered, and community-centered. I will not be able to explain it further, but this is just an example about how can we do a good innovation by actually looking at the right guiding principles to support our innovation. So one of these is how people learn framework. So if you are interested to learn more about this, you can actually find the book. The book is available online for free. HPL, How People Learn Framework, so that it helps us as a lecturer, as an educator, how best that we can innovate our class just to make sure that all of these are being fulfilled. For example, I just take one example here. If let's say we want to make sure that the students are learning, we have to make sure that the students they feel that they are in the community. For example, like here, the students and instructor, they feel part of the learning community. They are not afraid to make mistake. They feel safe to make mistake, for example. That is actually one way to make sure that the students are learning. And that is actually part of community-centered. But of course, it's not only community-centered. We have to look as well at other lenses. Okay? And another important part that we have to make sure that we support our student is by scaffolding. Okay? there are two big differences between scaffolding and spoon feeding. Spoon feeding is like kalau kita memancing, right? Students, and then we want the students to memancing as well. Memancing ikan, right? And then if let's say the student cannot get the fish, we give them the fish. That is spoon feeding. That is not what we're supposed to do. But for scaffolding, if let's say the students are not be able to, for example, we teach them how to catch fish. Maybe we teach them slowly. For example, like show and tell how, and then after that maybe pasang umpannya macam mana. Maybe where to find the place that can get a lot of fish. So that is actually a step-by-step guiding that we put to them. We cannot just simply throw everything and then let them do everything and expect them to acquire critical thinking. So we have to actually develop slowly and step by steps. Okay. So once the student achieve one level, this is where actually we pull them out. So that is part of the scaffolding. We don't repeat the similar thing again because students have already achieved a better level of their cognition, of their cognitive. Okay. So that is part of the scaffolding. And when we consider to do the student-centered learning, okay, so this is where actually we may want to figure out there is a spectrum of student-centered learning. The chalk and talk maybe is around here. We talk alone and without any interaction. But when we start to have engagement with the student, we call this as active learning. And then from time to time, if let's say we feel the students are okay, get well with the student-centered learning, then we start with collaborative learning, cooperative learning, problem-based learning, and so on. Because I wouldn't advise the lecturers or the teachers. Yesterday they make teachers chalk and talk. Today they're going to do problem-based learning straight away. It's not only going to traumatize the student, the lecturers also gonna be trauma. Okay, they're gonna face trauma as well. So I don't advise so, but we can actually scaffold ourselves slowly and move slowly so that we can develop the student-centered learning approach in our class. As simple as, for example, if let's say I'm doing a lecture in my class, so what I can do, for example, instead of just asking question to you, hello everyone, okay, what's the answer for this question? So instead of asking straight away to the student, perhaps they will just feel no one will respond to you, right? Because when you ask a question to them, what's your answer to this? Everybody will just note down, look down, right?
Shy and
okay,
embarrassed.
they will feel shy. And the best answer to you is, I don't know. Right? Saya nggak tahu. I think that's the best answer that they will tell you. But we can modify just a little bit way of how we can ask question to the student. For example, when we ask the student, okay, apakah jawapan kepada soalan ini? Contohnya, saya mahu bagi masa 15 saat untuk kamu fikir. 30 saat. Give them 30 seconds to think. Okay, let them think first. After 30 seconds, so what you have to do is, you just ask them, okay, now turn to your partner, share your answer. Share your answer.
Okay.
Okay, nampak tak? Tadi, instead of share your answer direct to you, but now just share between the partner. Why we're doing that? That is part of the scaffolding. Because we want the student to be confident on themselves. Because, oh, jawapan kamu sama dengan saya. Saya rasa saya seorang-seorang je. Jawapan ni macam ni. Rasa macam bodoh. Tapi rupanya it's the same thing. Kan? It's the same thing. Okay, you also have the same answer with me. So that is where actually we are scaffolding the student. Okay? And only that after the session when we discuss maybe 1 minute, 2 minutes together, only then you can ask, okay, yang kat belakang sana, what is your answer? Okay, Muhammad Ali, what is your answer? Okay, Multazam, apa yang answer jawapannya? Jadi we can ask straight away because they have already discussed about the question. That is a very simple technique that we can use just to make sure that our students are engaged. Instead of tanya, okay, student, what's the question? What's the answer? Everybody will not respond to you. Okay, they will just note down. Or maybe 1 or 2 people who always volunteer in the class, they are the one who will answer to you. So that is how actually a simple techniques can improve how the engagement happen. And this simple technique is part of the research that has been done by somewhere else. Right? So that's why it is very important for us to discover, to learn, and to improve our practice by learning, by reading. Only then you'll be able to make sure that there is a difference in our class. So there's a lot of practices. For example, like if you heard about flipped classroom, this is one of the approach in teaching and learning. There are also other things, for example, like problem-based learning, inquiry-based learning, game-based learning, gamification. These are all innovation that had happened earlier, practiced by others. And for example, if let's say assessment as well, this is also something that we can actually look at, because we want to avoid from having surface and strategic learners. Because all this while, I understand that many of us, whenever that we conduct teaching and learning in the class, we give lecture to the student, and then after that we give tutorials, show how, and then we ask the student to repeat similar works in similar assignment, and then after that melakukan latih to be dan sebagainya, we come up with the exam question, which is quite similar with the tutorial question. So the students maybe just remember, just just maybe memorize, for example, what's the technique, how to solve this answer, and so on. So the output from that will just get surface and strategic learners. The one who got good grade, but they are not be able to solve the real problem outside there, because they just memorize. So we want to avoid that thing. So that's why it is very important as well to look into improving the assessment. Okay, I'm going to skip this part. Also this part, and also this part. I'll share with you the link so that after this you can view the slides later on. Step 4, implement and collect necessary data. It's very important that whenever that we conduct innovation in our class, collect the data. Collect the data, for example, like the reflection from the student, the feedback from the student. If let's say we are doing survey, collect the survey, so that we know that are we doing it right or not. Maybe some of us may feel that, okay, if I collect the data, I can publish. That's good. It's a good practice if let's say you want to publish about your practices. But the most important part, as a scholarly educator, as a scholarly teacher, we want to collect the data to see that what else that we can improve. How best that we can improve after that. Okay? So that kita buat bukan untuk syok sendiri. Okay? Bukan untuk suka-suka saja. But we are doing it because we want to really make sure that there is a change in our practices. Okay? So I would like to share with you some of my innovations that I have done for the past many years ago. There's a lot of things that I've done, and a lot of it I've done it for reason. For example, like we did engineering service learning. We went into the village. We looked at the problem of the people over there, and the students make prototype to support the to help the villagers. We do, for example, we did flip cooperative learning because we want to make sure that the students learn about teamwork skills. We did flip assessment, for example, because we want to make sure that the student reach mastery level. And then we did integrated project because we want to make sure that the students can see the connection between one topic to another topic. We did outdoor-based learning, for example, just to make sure that the students can relate whatever that they're learning with the context outside of the class. We asked the student to develop the board game, for example. We did a lot of team buildings just to make sure we develop the teamwork, mini lab hands-on, online active learning, integrated PBL, and so on. For example, when I talk about flip assessment...
Sorry to interrupt. You have 5 more minutes, Mr.
Okay, no problem. So, for example, we have flip assessment here. Flip assessment is where actually the assessment where instead of kita beri soalan kepada student, now you instruct the student to develop question for you. And develop question, exam question, complete with solution. Okay? And ask them, you cannot tiru, you cannot copy, you cannot plagiarize anywhere. Okay? But you have to make sure that the question must be original, it have a complete solution, and you make sure that the question also on the higher level of Bloom taxonomy. So we teach them about that. So this is where actually we can improve the mastery of the student. Because for us, if let's say we ask ourselves, right? If let's say we are the lecturer and we want to develop exam question, of course we need to revise the chapter first, right? We go from one page to another page and read, and then we try and come up with the question and test and come up with the solution. So we want the similar practice to be done by the student. So in this case, it will achieve mastery. The students will achieve the mastery level. So this is one of the example I give to the student. They are the new chemical engineering lecturer appointed, and the dean who like to see the past exam question and so on, and some of these analogy and parameters in order for them to complete that. So that is one of the example of a flip assessment that I did. So when I talk about flip cooperative learning, there's a structure towards it. For example, like the student watch the video before the class, When they come to the class, there are actually some activities, team pair share, and then they have deeper activities just to have a deeper understanding about the concept. So this is where actually teaching, sometimes people will ask, where's the teaching? There's no teaching here. Yeah. For me, teaching is making learning happen. So if let's say the learning happen throughout this process, so that is actually the teaching happen. Okay, so this is some of the examples. So from step 4, we collect the data, and finally on the step 5, we reflect on the practices and we improve where necessary. Okay, so these are actually 5 steps in order for us to make sure that there is innovation in teaching and learning. First thing first is investigate our practice in our class, okay, and then read from literatures, as well as pack your bag and go for training. Training is very important. So all the lecturers, all the educators, you must go for the training to improve yourself, okay, especially in the teaching practices. And the third one is identify what will be your guiding principles to guide you during innovation. And then finally, implement and collect data, and finally improve where necessary. And don't forget to publish. So if let's say you can work for publish, then publish your work. Okay. So yeah, I think that's all for my sharing. One of the link that I can share with you, if you are interested to read, this is one of my paper, which is highly cited. Improving teamwork skills and enhancing deep learning via development of board games. The students are required to develop the board game using cooperative learning method in reaction engineering. So without, I think that's all. All right. So some of you are sharing here, and perhaps before I end the session again, I would appreciate your reflection. What do you learn from my session, and what are the things that you want to try, so that we can work on this together. Okay, you can use the same link. And without the further ado, I would like to pass back to Dr. Shariful for over to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. President. It's a nice and really important discussion for us, since Dr. Tazli gave us important tools and insight about things that we need to design and construct in our teaching and learning. And after that, how we make an approach inside the classroom and outside the classroom. And we wish you can share the your slide later to us, and then we can learn a lot from that. I think I can hear you talking about the teaching and learning methods hours, but we have a limited time for that. Dan buat para peserta yang lain, masih ada beberapa pertanyaan di menti.com yang tadi, itu bisa silakan untuk dijawab, terutama terkait dengan apa yang bisa kita dapatkan dari paparan beliau yang baru saja disampaikan. Thank you very much for Dr. Tazli. Now we are going to next speakers, last one. Again, if you have a question, you can write your question in a chat room. Dapat Anda tuliskan pertanyaannya nanti di chat room, dan kemudian I have a lot of question for both previous speakers, either for Mr. Bilat or Mr. Tazli, but we need to wait until the discussion session for the Q&A. And then now we are going to the last speaker, my colleague, Dr. Dwi Wahyudiati, to present her slide. Time is now yours.
Okay, thank you for Mr. Sarif.
Dapatkan itu di Sarif.
Sudah panjang?
Okay.
Okay. Okay, thank you for Mr. Sarif.
Ya,
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
Kedengeran.
Kedengeran? Oke. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I will to continue discussion this today. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin. Salatu wassalamu ala asrofil anbiya wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa ashabi ajmain amma ba'du. Alhamdulillah, we should be grateful that today we can hold an international seminar as a form of our academic relationship. And also the Honorable the Head of the Department of Chemistry Education UIN Mataram, Mr. Yahdi MSc, and also the Honorable two Speaker, Mr. Muhammad Ra'il Bilad and Mr. Tadris Azizan. Welcome to UIN Mataram, and very happy to be able to share the knowledge and experience about learning and research in the field of chemistry. Thank you so much. And also the all audience, we have hopefully this activities today can improving our competency in teaching and learning in chemistry education, inshallah. Amin ya rabbal alamin. Okay, I will continue the discussion about TPAC and STEM in chemistry education. Our focus this discussion today, TPAC and STEM. TPAC is technological, pedagogical content knowledge, and STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics. How about implementation in chemistry learning? How about the planning? How about implementation? And how about the evaluation in the teaching and learning in chemistry learning? And then the first question, how is the TPAC and STEM concept in learning? And then after the 21st century scale, we have 3 competency for our students. The first, foundational literacy, including literacy, numeracy, scientific literacy, and other. And competency, and very, very important to help to the student about the skill, critical thinking skill or problem solving skill, creativity, communication, and collaboration, and character quality, including curiosity, initiative, adaptability, and other that are expected to be possessed by students to be able to compete in the era of globalization. Is very important to have students who are needed in life every day in the community. And then definition of TPAC. TPAC is a learning approach, not a learning model, but it's a learning approach by integrating technological and pedagogical development to development content in the world of education, especially learning activity. This means TPAC is a learning approach, and another learning model, including PBL, PJBL, and other. And also framework TPAC, technological pedagogical content knowledge, including 6 concepts, namely technological knowledge, pedagogical knowledge, content knowledge. And between one concept and another are interrelated as are determined of the implementation of the TPAC approach in learning. And how it is implemented in learning, they explain like this. Pedagogical knowledge definition is knowledge about the student learning, instructional method, different educational, and so on. Content knowledge, knowledge about the subject matter. Pedagogical knowledge, knowledge about the representing content knowledge. TPK, knowledge about the existence and specification of various technological to enable teaching approach, and technological content knowledge, knowledge about how to use technology to represent or research and create the content in different ways without concern about teaching. And TPEC, knowledge of using various technology to teach and represent facilitate knowledge creation of specific subject content. And soon, let's move on to discussion about STEM education. STEM is a curriculum based on idea of education student for specific discipline, namely science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, and are integrated interdisciplinary approach to learning that provide hand-on and relevant learning experience for students. There are four main components of STEM, including science and technology, engineering, and mathematics. To improving 21st century skill for students, especially shape-directed learning, problem-solving skill, collaboration, creativity, and entrepreneurial spirit. So that by applying this four component in learning, student will be able to develop 21st century skill, including problem solving, collaborating, and other. And now, how to implement TPEC in STEM in learning? How about the planning? How about the implementation? And how about the evaluation? The first stage, in the planning stage, we can start with analysis curriculum, compilation syllabus, and then compilation RPS or RPP. And stage 4, we can determination about approach, model, and learning method, and compilation of about learning IT-based material, IT-based instrument. And then how to apply TPEC and STEM in chemistry learning. Step 1, in compiling RPS or RPP refers to the integration of technology, engineering, mathematics, pedagogy, and subject matter knowledge. And learning stage, problem solving oriented and student center. Example, PBL model, PJBL model, and other. And stage 3, we can designing IT-based learning media, example, computer interactive, video, multimedia, and other. And stage 4, we can designing IT-based teaching material, example, we can use photon application, crazy, Camtasia, or augmented reality, and other. And we can designing IT-based assessment instrument, example Google Forms, web, video, and other. And the learning stage of problem solving oriented and student center, example PBL model, PGL, and engineering design process. We can see every model have a syntax, and another syntax very interrelated, another syntax one and the syntax other. Example, a syntax for engineering design process, define problem is very interrelated for syntax first stage in the PBL model, PJBL STEM, and 5E cycle. Likewise, in background research and very related to the second syntax about PBL model, research, and PJBL STEM, or the 5A cycle. And then how the learning evaluation stage, we can effective, including three aspects, including affective, psychomotor aspect, and cognitive aspects. In affective aspect, example, scientific attitude, critical thinking skills, STEM listening, communication, and collaborating skill. And then psychomotor aspect includes science process skill, problem solving skill, and cognitive aspect include cognitive learning outcome. And we can combine or develop in IT-based assessment instrument to using measurement for affective, psychomotor, and cognitive aspect for student. Research opportunity. Number one, development of TPEC and STEM-based learning media. And two, IT-based chemistry teaching material. And three, TPEC and STEM-based practicum. And four, development of TPEC and STEM-based chemistry learning model. And last, development of TPEC and STEM-based chemistry method and strategies. Okay, that's what I can present. I will back to the moderator to process to this presentation. Thank you for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Okay, thank you very much for Mrs. Dwi Wahyudiati about the presentation and the topic of STEM, Science, Technology, Engineering, and Mathematics, and TPEC, Technological Pedagogic Content Knowledge, which is now, I think, kind of approach that quite popular, either for a researcher, for a lecturer, and for a teacher in the classroom. And recently, in 2021, in 2020, I think, PISA just announced the recent their recent study about the high order thinking skill in Indonesia in a rather low position. So TPEC and STEM can be a solution to get a higher position in high order thinking skill for the students. Now we are going to the discussion session. There's a few questions in the chat room. Can we open the chat box, please? And then later on, if you want to asking directly, you can raise your hand and then choose which speaker that you want to ask. You can either asking in Bahasa. Later on, I will translate it to our speakers. Or you can asking straightly by using English language. I think we have a question in our chat room from Handy Aldian. I will read the question. Tidak lagi berbicara terkait inovasi apa yang harus dilakukan untuk meningkatkan gaya belajar siswa sehingga poin-poin fokus dapat tercapai. Inilah yang terjadi di sebagian besar sekolah yang ada di Indonesia yang serba kekurangan. I will try to find the question. Seterwujud apabila keadaan sudah lembaga pendidikan yang kita temukan seperti itu. And then can we ask? I think the question is appropriate to all of the speakers. What is the step-by-step that we can use in our teaching and learning classroom if we are lack from the infrastructure and the support system in our classroom is not suitable for the teaching and learning, and the infrastructure is not really supporting us to do some methods that we are designing. So what we can do about that, because in Indonesia, I think it's also a problem in Malaysia and Brunei. I don't think, yeah, I think it's a major problem in Indonesia since we have a really rural area which lack in infrastructure. So what we can do, the student is already have higher motivating in learning. They really high motivate, and then they already learn the topics, but the infrastructure that we need to design our approach is not compatible with our design. I think Mr. Tazli can answer this question first.
Okay. This is my feedback. Okay, about how best that we can do, especially for example in the rural area and so on. Okay, I think many of us they think that in order for us to improve the teaching and learning, we need to have technology. Yes, to a certain extent, but not true. But not true. Not all the time that we require technology. Technology is somehow the enabler. Okay, is the enabler for the teaching and learning process to become better. But
Can we find the noise source?
all right. But if we don't have the technology, that is still possible to make the innovation in our class. I think as I mentioned earlier, for example, if let's say we are so used to, for example, like to do the teaching and learning just by talking, just by giving talks and giving lectures without any pause. What we can do is, for example, we can just employ a simple approach. For example, like active learning, as I mentioned earlier, the technique of think, pair, share. For example, you just, for example, if let's say along the while, maybe after 10 to 15 minutes after you giving some lecture to them, okay, students, before I proceed with my lecture, I have a question that I would like you to answer. And then you use that approach. For example, like, okay, this is the question that I would like you to answer. But first, I need you to think first, the next 30 seconds. And after that, okay, now you talk to your partner for the next 3 minutes. And then after that, okay, now share what's your output. That doesn't require any technology at all. If you can see that. So it means that the most important part here in making sure that the students are learning is improving the competency of the teachers. Competency of teachers, especially in teaching and learning. And the teachers, the most important part is, if let's say kalau kita nggak tahu apa-apa, kita kena belajar. That is very important. For us to learn is we need to find, for example, going for training and have a lot of discussion. For example, among the teachers, we cannot simply treat our class like a secret garden. For example, I think most of us have a tendency to not talk about what happened in our class with others. But we as the teachers, in order for us to improve, if we're really concerned about the prestasi pelajar-pelajar, this is where actually we need to talk to each other. And this is where actually we should share what's the approach that we do in the class, so that maybe somebody else can emulate, boleh tiru, boleh cuba di dalam kelas. Okay, boleh cuba tiru basi kan. Jadi boleh gunakan dalam kelas masing-masing to improve that practice. And from that, barulah kita boleh naik sikit-sikit. In term of, for example, we start to improve ourselves slowly but surely. Don't start big. Don't start simply just, I want to start everything big by tomorrow. Not really. We don't have to do that. But what I have to do is start small but consistent. And that is where actually we can start to make things better in our class. Maybe Dr. Roil ada mau add something?
Okay, yeah, Dr. Roil already quite familiar with the problems of infrastructure.
I think I agree totally with Dr. Tazli. If we refer to the classic book, because I know all of you are from Islamic University, so you know the 6 condition of Talabul Ilm, ya, dari kitab apa itu Ta'limul Muta'alim. Ya, itu dia bilang apa itu? Lan tanalul ilmu illa sittatin kan. One of the condition there is wa irsyad ustazin. I think if the teacher really master the subject, doesn't matter in any condition, they will be able to deliver the teaching. That's the key, and it is. I don't know. I think it is the most important. Probably it's too important. Rarely been mentioned. We always keep thinking about what tools to enhance the learning experience, But actually, the most important thing is the mastery of the teacher. Because I do believe personally that you can only, it's very different from, for example, you learn from someone who just know the topic, know the subject, but you learn from really the master of the subject. It's a lot of actually knowledge is transferred not by what you say or what you see, but what you feel and how you interact with the teacher. So if you're really master, for example, for a particular subject, I have taught that one for many years. So I can come to the class without preparation and I can use any tools and we can use a simple analogy to explain the subject very well. So that is the key. I mean, what we discuss, of course, a lot of tools, a lot of technological development in teaching and learning, but those are, I think, a way to enhance the learning experience. But the key is actually the mastery of teacher in the knowledge and delivery of the teaching, as well as the strong willingness by the student to learn, I think. That we cannot take out from our teaching and learning process. Another thing is, I think the issue that we face now, if sometimes I imagine if I live in this era, I will probably not achieve what I can achieve today, because I know it's getting more difficult. You see that you have so many tools to learn, so much resources that you can access, but also you have a lot of distractions, a lot of things, a lot of things today that distract you from doing the right things. Okay, so students, we speak to the student now. Try to focus on developing your mastery in the subject and as well as the in delivery. Yeah, I think that's from me, and it's a good question.
Any other opinion from Mrs. Dwi Wahydiati?
Okay, thank you. Pertanyaan yang tadi yang sudah dipertanyakan oleh Hendy ya, yang baru saja, ini salah satu kebanggaan juga bagi prodi di Tadris Kimia UIN Mataram, baru balik dari KKP Nusantara ya, KKP Nusantara dari Papua. Tentu banyak pengalaman di sana ya yang sudah Hendy dapatkan, dan ini merupakan mungkin sebagai salah satu curhatannya setelah kembali dari Papua ya beberapa hari yang lalu, bahwa memang real yang terjadi banyak sekali perbedaan antara bagaimana sarana prasarana ataupun kompetensi dari para guru dan dosen dan lain sebagainya antara Indonesia Timur, Indonesia Tengah, dan kalau bicara di Indonesia ini untuk narasumber yang lain. Nah, tetapi yang menjadi kunci di sini adalah bukan kita melihat ini Indonesia Timur dengan kelemahan yang banyak sekali ya dibandingkan dengan yang di Jawa misalnya ya, ataupun di Indonesia di bagian barat dan seterusnya. Tetapi yang menjadi kunci di sini adalah guru itu sendiri. Ya. Karena apapun fungsinya, apapun yang kita mau sampaikan, yang menjadi kunci penentu tercapainya tujuan pembelajaran itu adalah guru. Ya. Kalau kita misalnya seperti yang tadi sudah dijelaskan ya, seperti TPEK, STEM ataupun beberapa model pembelajaran lainnya, itu menjadi sebagai wahana atau sarana untuk kita bagaimana bisa meningkatkan kompetensi siswa, tetapi tidak bisa peran guru itu digantikan oleh IT. Guru menjadi satu-satunya yang menjadi kunci utama di dalam penentu keberhasilan suatu proses pembelajaran. Yang lainnya itu sebagai faktor pendukung saja. Tetapi kalau guru sudah punya kompetensi yang bagus ya, baik dia sudah paham materinya dengan baik, punya kompetensi pedagoginya sudah sangat bagus, maka yakin saja mau ditempatkan dimanapun jangan takut. Mau di Indonesia Timur, di pelosok, di daerah lainnya, kalau guru sudah punya kompetensi yang bagus, maka yakinlah kita bisa memanage pembelajaran, kita bisa mengatur bagaimana siswa menjadi aktif, asalkan kuncinya adalah di gurunya. Makanya kita berharap melalui seminar ini ya, tidak hanya bagaimana belajar tentang pembelajaran yang menyenangkan, kemudian berbasis IT, kemudian pembelajaran abad 21, Tapi bisa sharing informasi juga, Bapak Ibu Guru mungkin yang juga hadir, bahwa untuk kompetensi sekarang kita tidak hanya dituntut untuk bisa paham dalam membelajarkan, tetapi juga kita harus menulis. Seperti tadi banyak sekali kajian-kajian sudah dipaparkan oleh dua narasumber kita, Pak Roy Bilar sama Pak Dr. Tadris Azizan, bahwa sangat memungkinkan kompetensi-kompetensinya Bapak Ibu itu ya, ide-ide kreatifnya itu bagaimana permasalahan di sekolah, dianalisis, kemudian ditulis menjadi suatu artikel, itu bisa menjadi salah satu penopang utama untuk kita bisa publish artikel tidak hanya di Sinta kalau di Indonesia, tapi juga bisa publish di artikel di Scopus ataupun Web of Science dan lain sebagainya. Terima kasih Pak Sarif, itu tambahan dari saya.
Thank you very much. So I think we are agree that from all of the speakers realize that teacher is actually the main actor behind what the student learn in the classroom. So the importance of a teacher mastering what they are going to teach to the students is really important. So to all of the participants, which is a teacher and also pre-first teacher, who will conduct in teaching and learning later on, must understand that being masterful in the subject and topics that you are going to teach is will help the students understand the topics that you teach to them. We have another question. I think it is to both of the speakers, Muhammad Bilal and Dr. Tadris Azizan. Would you like to share the tips and tricks to us how to construct our research that up to date and sustainable to make research roadmap for our study program that will be last for a long time research? Because now we are in Tadris Kimia, Tadris Chemistry now, trying to develop our roadmap in our research. So what kind of tips and advice that you can give to us to construct what type of field that we need to specific on, and what type of subject and topics that we need to focus on research? I think both of you can give Dr. Tadris Azizan and Dr. Muhammad Bilal.
Dr. Roel, I think Dr. Roel.
You can start for Mr. Bilal, I think.
Good questions and a good momentum, I think. If you refer to my slide, I have one slide on strategy for developing impactful research. Okay, and then I put 4 points there. Number one is to focus on the expertise. So if you want to start to develop the roadmap, you have first map what are you good at first. Because if you are halfway good on something and you want to try to compete in the research field, that will be tough. So you really identify what we are good at, and let's start with what we are good at. Okay. The next one, now you know what your expertise, and you see that what resources you have. Okay. We need to be quite pragmatic. Okay. With that resources, what can we do? Okay, so you need to develop the scope of research that can be done with the available resources. For example, you will not do augmented reality, for example. That of course, that is a buzzword. I mean, it's very ear-catching, but then you cannot do it. So you do on something you can do. What resources available? Here, you need really be creative and pragmatic. Okay, think out of the box, evolve a bit from what you do. Okay, if the focus of the faculty members, for example, in particular aspect of chemistry teaching, then you start with that one. Okay, you start with that one, and when you establish some research of there, you spin off, grow a little bit beyond that, but not too far away. So you still have an anchor that link you to to your core expertise. Because if you start something from scratch, it's like starting a new PhD for me. I think for a new area of research, it takes long years. For example, I always want to follow footsteps of Dr. Tazli to do some research on education. And yeah, just to understand what's happening in that research area, it takes years. Yeah, and we are not only doing research. I mean, of course, in Indonesia you have teaching, research, and public services, and a lot of administration, I think, in our job. So to allocate times and develop the mastery on the subject takes a lot of effort. Okay, and finally, try to look into the expert in that area and approach them to assist and collaborate. For example, now here, if you really want to go for pedagogical relative innovation in teaching research, for example, you have Dr. Tazli here. If you want to go for something like sustainable, I mean, more experimental to science, maybe you can ask me later on, and then I can help. Because if you do it your own and no one experienced in the team, that will be too much time for trial and error. So we want someone who knows the way, who shows the way, and can help you to achieve whatever you want in your roadmap. Okay, I think that's from me.
I think let me add a little bit on this. I actually, my background, as I think as mentioned earlier, I'm similar with Dr. Roil from chemical engineering. I used to do chemical engineering research work before, but I think the most important part that I think what makes me change is actually the passion that leads into what actually that you really want to solve. What kind of problem that you really want to solve? What kind of contribution that you really want to bring to the society? And for me, I think Dr. Roil is very passionate on all these membrane and all these related things. But for me, when I started with doing a lot of reaction engineering related in chemical engineering, and suddenly realized, well, education is very big and is still big challenge, a lot of issues, and I feel that okay, I would like to go further into this, but I start from scratch. So I learned from early. I went for training, and I learned from the guru, the right gurus, and of course I didn't start this alone. It's a teamwork effort, and after that, only then slowly you can build your competency. So you may want to start somewhere. Definitely, you really want to start somewhere, but you have to ask yourself first, is actually what do you really want to do, and only that we'll be able to expand ourselves and to look into what matters actually that you really want to give. What do you think that you really want to give to the society? That's very important thing that we have to think of. Thank you.
Very much. Then we will go into the next question from University Dewi. Can we see the question? The chat box. Yeah, the next question is it's directly to Muhammad Tazli Azizan. I'm interested with your innovation, especially mini lab hand-on. Maybe can you share how you use that innovation in your class? So, Dr. Tazli.
Okay. I think when it comes to this mini hands-on, this is one of the practice that we did in our flip cooperative learning class. I think I haven't got time to explain about flip cooperative learning before. Flip cooperative learning is one of the approach where I recorded the video of my lecture and I give it to my students so that they actually went through the video first before they come to the class. And then there is a quiz and so on lah. So that just to make sure that they go through the video, create their own notes and so on. So when they come to the class, so people will ask, what's next? What's next? So there's no more lecture in the class. There's no more lecture in the class. It's just a recap session. And after that, there will be plenty of activities. And one of the activity is, we call it as mini lab hands-on. So because the topic is related to reaction engineering, and I want to teach the student different type of reactor. So what I requested them to do is just bring plastic bottles. Bring plastic bottles to the class. And on top of that, we have, I provided some materials like porous materials, pebbles, for example, just to imitate the pack bag reactor. And then after that, also bring like hose pipe, and then of course a few other stationaries and so on. And we divided the students into different groups. For example, small group, 4 to 5 them, and they created different type of reactor and demonstrate the reaction between some simple reactant. For example, I just asked them to react Coca-Cola and milk, for example, you know, and then just to see the differences that they can observe from one type of reactor to another. And it's just a simple setup. So from that, the students be able to relate their experience doing it with the concept. I think that is the most important part. So yes, I didn't use augmented reality during that time whatsoever, but it is just to make sure that the students be able to connect whatever that they learn on the fundamentals that they see in the textbook, they can translate into something that they can use, they can do hands on. So that is actually the concept of mini lab hands on, something about backyard science, backyard experiment. So those are the things that the students can do. I think with chemistry education is something that you really may want to practice that. It's quite simple, straight to the point, and safe. Most importantly, it has to be safe. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that's quite covered the question. Now we are going to the next question in the chat room. If any of participants who want to ask directly to Mr. Azizan and to Mr. Bilal can ask it by raising a hand. There is a raise hand in the Zoom that you can use that. But we will jump to the next question. Kira-kira bentuk teknologi pendidikan maupun riset seperti apa? It's from Muayana. Kira-kira bentuk teknologi pendidikan maupun riset seperti apa yang akan berkembang dan bisa diaplikasikan sesuai kebutuhan guru atau peneliti ke depannya? What kind of pedagogical technology and research that will develop and can be actually implement based on the necessity from the teacher and quite approachable for the research in the future? And what kind of tricks and tips that you can do for the future? Mr. Bilan, I think you see the question. Can you answer that first? Yeah.
Well, this is hard questions.
Yeah, it's difficult.
I couldn't deliver it in my talk, so I instead of telling what, I provide you tools of how to get there.
Yeah.
Really on what is your interest. Technological in education, I think it will implement new technologies in education. So all of the IT-based technology, robotic, blah blah blah. A lot of things that had been difficult to teach in the past. For example, it will be made more simple. For example, algorithm like programming, they teach with Scratch now. Even students in elementary school already learn how to do programming with Scratch. Yeah, and then a lot of, I think they will make this.
Actually, your daughter played.
All of those technologies they can be accessed and affordable. So which make, I think, relating the basic knowledge to the application become much easier. Okay, that is, I think, my vision for the future technological education. So more like practical aspects with simplified, miniaturized prototype. I think what Dr. Tadri have done with the mini lab is one of, for example, earlier form of this, but some entrepreneur will pick that up and make it much proper. They will provide some kits to learn about, for example, reactors, to learn about reaction. I think it has been then there commercialized. So instead of asking students memorizing what is the sign of a chemical reaction, for example, they can really do it in the lab with manageable risk, of course, and they can see it and feel it and learn by doing and practicing it. Okay, the other thing about research that will be hard. Research will support those because you see what applied in education is kind of application of research. Okay, so research is much more advanced than what we applied in practice. So looking into research, so you follow the way I said earlier, and then you can inshallah find actually what are going on in the research. I think that's from me.
Okay, Mr. Azizan, any other opinion, please?
Okay. As I mentioned earlier, if let's say we the first thing first, as a teacher, what you want to practice, what you want to change in our practice in our class is moving from what we call as teacher-centered towards student-centered learning. That is one of the things that we may want to start with. For student-centered learning, this is where actually the practice of you can start with active learning, for example, cooperative learning, collaborative learning, project-based learning, a lot of everything, a lot of things that has been researched earlier. These are the things that we can actually adopt and practice, implement in our class. And when it comes to educational technology, okay, we may want to find the technology that actually could help and assist us in when we are conducting this kind of approach. For example, I like to use Mentimeter a lot in my classes, in my workshops, because that is where actually I can get engaged, especially with my students. When I conduct the session, I ask the student to participate in it. They said they like it because it is anonymous. I don't know who said what actually. Especially the students nowadays, they many of them, they also feel afraid even to write in the chat section, especially during the online learning last time. So I use Mentimeter so that from that they can participate and give feedback on it. I also use, if let's say you can see that the application that I use right now is Canva for my slide presentation. I have actually say goodbye to PowerPoint for the past 2 years. No more PowerPoint. Because I feel that Canva is much more friendlier in terms of preparing the materials, teaching materials. At the same time, it allows for collaboration. It allows for students to collaborate. So whenever that I conducted session, such as for example, if let's say I conduct online learning, for example, and then I conduct breakout activities. So in the breakout activities, I will share the Canva link with them, and then they'll be able to participate and collaborate together to solve some problems that I have given to them earlier. And of course, it's not limited to that. This is just some example, but there are plenty of software, there are plenty of apps outside there that has been already provided for learning. But okay, this is also some advice. Do not be too overwhelmed with too much tools. You may want to pick only 2 or 3 tools that you can just use in your class, and just test with it, and then play with it, use it, and just pick which one that is you are comfortable with. Don't feel overwhelmed with so many tools outside there. Of course, there are so many technology provider outside there, but I don't think that we have time to explore everything. So pick the right one, and pick the one that you feel that is most beneficial to you. So that is somehow we can actually start with our teaching and learning practices.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, that's quite useful tips and trick. Kita pilih apa yang bisa kita pelajari dan kita manfaatkan itu semaksimal mungkin. Choose your tools and being a master of that tools and apply that in your classroom. I think that's what we can do with a lot of choices and options out there. Technology develop and a lot of things that we can use. Later on, we can talking about the augmented reality or the the AI and etc. artificial intelligence that we can also apply. But in a simple things, we can start by choose or what the technology can be more appropriate with you, what the technology that you can use that and you understand that technology, and then you can use that in your classroom. I think someone raised their hands is, I see Amelia Riandari, to whom you will ask the question. Please, you can use your speakers, please.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you for the chance. First, I want to thanks to all the speaker. It was such a great and nice presentation. Actually, this is the first time for me to listen about this material, and it was really interesting. I'm by Amelia Riandari. I'm one of the lecturer in the Department of Chemistry Education, Universitas Islam Negeri Mataram. I want to ask Dr. Muhammad Tazli Azizan. I have one question for you. Actually, in Indonesia, now in education area, we are moving to the new curriculum, and from your presentation I see that one of the innovation that we have to improve is curriculum innovation. I wonder about what is how do the okay, sorry, I mean, could you tell us about what the curriculum in your country, I mean, could you tell us about how to improve the curriculum or innovate your curriculum in your country? Okay, that's all. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Baik, Amelia. Okay.
Okay.
Right. So even actually some of the, I would say that not all the curriculums at higher education in Malaysia is fully, I would say, fully up to date. I mean, some of it are still traditional. Especially I would say that, for example, like when I was back in engineering program are very much say traditional module based, like one subject and then next semester another subject and so on. But right now, if have you ever heard about micro credentials? Micro credentials is actually one of the advancements of the curriculum, and I think the Malaysian Qualification Agency MQA under the Higher Ministry of Education has made certain guidelines to promote for the use of micro credentials. This is actually to address the issues of for example, like right now in Malaysia, the situation is that some of our learners, after they finish the high school, they decided not to further their study, right? They wanted to go into the job market straight away, and sometimes they feel that they want to become influencers, and have this kind of they feel that they can make money from that. So what we are looking at is actually, for example, micro credentials is allowing the students and or even actually learners at any age, adults at any age, to learn by bite size. They call it by bite size learning. So the universities start to offer these micro credentials, so they can just take maybe 2 hours courses, 3 hours courses, and then they complete those courses and they be able to get what we call a digital badge. So this digital badge is actually collectibles up to any is at their own pace. For example, like this year I want to learn maybe 1 or 2 topics, small unit topics, and I collect all these badges. And then after a while, they can just stack along their badges, and then they start to see, oh, I think I have fulfilled maybe 20 credits of this. Now I feel that I want to further my study full time, for example. So with that 20 credits, they can get a credit transfer. they can get a credit transfer. So whenever that they enter the university, for example, they can get exemption not to take this 20 credit subject related subject. So that is one of the innovation that is currently being made in Malaysia. So they for example, like, okay, if let's say we talk about thermodynamics, the student, the learners, they are not taking the micro credentials of thermodynamic. Maybe they just take a small unit of topic in that thermodynamic they learn on their own. Because as an adult learner, we ourselves, whenever that we are learning, if we can reflect ourselves, we when it comes to learning, we just want to learn to solve our problem, right? So for example, like when we have problem, for example, how to fix the door knob, we will go to YouTube and find the information how to fix the door knob, and then that's where we learn, and then that's where we change the door knob, for example, and that's it. And after that, the next time when we learn, maybe we are learning about we come across some issues with our when we are cooking, we come across some problem with it. So okay, and then we go to YouTube and find information about it. So that is actually the idea of micro credentials. It allows the students, it allows the learners like us, like the adult, to they call it just in time learning. You know, just in time learning. Just find the information, whatever that we want to learn, and at the same time, if you go to YouTube, you will not be able to get the badge. But here, with micro credentials, you'll be able to get the badge, and then you'll be able to collect all the badge. And then when you go to the assessors, to the higher education provider, and you say, okay, I have these badges, stackable, all these badges. Can you get some credit? And I want to further my study in chemistry, for example. Okay, they check whether which one is actually suitable, that meets the learning outcome of the subject they offered. Okay, you can get out of this 60 credit that you take all these courses, 30 credits are not relevant to chemistry, so we cannot accept this, but 30 credits, you can get credit transfer. So it saves their time, it saves their money. So that's one of the micro credentials idea. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's really unique and can save a lot of time, of course, for the applicants to university.
Yeah, and then they have different access to university. So the university is no longer an idea that for 18 years old to come is actually open for a lifelong learning process. It's a lifelong learning process. You can come at any time to learn something.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think with the actual experience in life rather than in chair of the university in a school chair. Okay, thank you very much. The other question, the one question in the chat box to Mrs. Wahyudiati. I want to ask to Mrs. Wahyudiati berkaitan dengan STEM. So it is about STEM learning, which is have quite a few steps to apply it. And seandainya jika inovasi ingin kita terapkan dalam pembelajaran, apakah waktu yang dibutuhkan cukup untuk digunakan mengingat waktu dalam kelas is limited? Okay, please.
Okay. Ini pertanyaan dari Bu Novia ya, Novia, dan sebenarnya permasalahan yang diungkap Bu Novia ini real terjadi di semua pembelajaran ya, tidak hanya di kimia, baik itu social science, kemudian juga di humanity dan lain sebagainya. Kita pun merasakannya sebenarnya. Dilemanya adalah dalam pembelajaran kita, memang kita kan dituntut untuk mencapai tujuan pembelajaran ABCD dan seterusnya. Akan tetapi di satu sisi yang menjadi kendalanya ya adalah di waktu. Kurikulum kita yang cenderung terjadi perubahan ketika terjadi perubahan atau pergantian menteri, berganti lagi pergantian ini menjadi salah satu problem ya. Siklus kurikulum berganti, belum paham sudah berganti lagi dan seterusnya. Nah, terkait dengan waktu dalam kita pembelajaran STEM ini memang STEM kan konsepnya dia mengcombine empat bidang ya, ada sains, teknologi, engineering, matematik, dan itu di seorang dosen ataupun guru diminta untuk bisa mengcombine 4 keterampilan tersebut atau 4 bidang pengetahuan tersebut dalam sebuah pembelajaran dengan kurun waktu yang relatif dengan jumlah materi yang padat dengan waktu yang singkat. Itu menjadi salah satu kelemahan atau kendala dalam kita menerapkan STEM ini. Tetapi ada triknya yang bisa kita minimalisir. Tentu apapun itu ada kelebihan dan kelemahannya. di tahapannya ini kita bisa menganalisisnya mulai dari kita merencanakan dulu. Merencanakan. Nah, merencanakan ini kita benar-benar menganalisis kurikulum atau misalnya satu mata kuliah yang kita ampu itu kita analisis dulu. Kira-kira dari semua pokok bahasan yang ada, pokok bahasan mana yang paling mungkin untuk bisa kita terapkan STEM ini dalam pembelajaran. Jadi mungkin tidak semua pokok bahasan kita akan terapkan itu, tapi kita bisa pilih mana yang paling mungkin dulu. Apalagi ini kan sebuah pendekatan yang baru ya, yang baru, sehingga kita memang butuh proses step by step ya untuk bisa menerapkan ini. Kemudian setelah kita analisis kurikulumnya, nah, yang kewajiban kita kalau di baik guru maupun dosen itu kan kita harus membuat perangkat pembelajarannya. Misalnya kita menyusun silabusnya dulu. Nah, kemudian ada kalau kita di perguruan tinggi ada namanya RPS ya, atau di guru itu ada RPP. Nah, kekhasan dari TIPEK dan STEM ini adalah di pemilihan model pembelajarannya. Kalau kita menggunakan pendekatan STEM sebagai pilihan atau TIPEK, maka ada 5 pilihan model pembelajaran yang bisa kita terapkan di sana. Seperti problem based learning, ada PJBL, kemudian yang EDP tadi, ataupun yang included learning, dan juga 5E cycle tadi. Nah, kalau kita menerapkan itu sebagai pilihan model pembelajaran, maka itu dalam artian kita sudah mulai menerapkan STEM ataupun TIPEK dalam pembelajaran. Nah, tinggal kita tambahkan lagi dengan IT-nya. Jadi kalau Bu Nopia kan sudah sangat familiar ya dengan IT, ada ketika misalnya pembelajaran, kalau dari mahasiswa sudah menggunakan beberapa aplikasi, kalau saya lihat di pembelajaran Bu Nopia ada Photon, ada Camtasia, dan sejenisnya. Nah, secara tidak langsung sebenarnya itu sudah menerapkan STEM dan TIPEK dalam pembelajaran. Cuma sekarang adalah bagaimana benar-benar mengefisienkan waktunya. Memang tidak mudah, tetapi kalau misalnya kita coba step by step, insya Allah nanti tujuan pembelajaran yang kita harapkan, saya rasa akan bisa kita tercapai ya, karena memang kan di perguruan tinggi ataupun di sekolah itu kita tidak hanya bisa atau menuntut siswa untuk paham konsep, tetapi juga dari aspek psikomotoriknya, aspek afektifnya, apalagi sekarang keterampilan abad 21 banyak hal yang kita dituntut, critical thinking skill siswa ya, problem solvingnya dan lain sebagainya. Ditambah lagi dengan IT sekarang, jangankan siswanya, kadang-kadang guru pun masih belum melek terhadap IT ini. Seperti itu Bu Nopia. Nah,
Yeah, thank you very much. I think before we close the session, there is one question from me to Dr. Azizan that I want to ask directly. It is about from the presentation material and then from the discussion session, question and answer. I want to ask about there is a lot and various type of learning that might increase our order thinking skill, like project-based learning, problem-based learning. But there is one specific approach that I want to ask you about, the service learning, which is I think it is really help us to engage ourselves with the community, to share our knowledge with the community, and to apply the knowledge that we learn in the classroom to the community. And please enlighten us, illuminate us some about this one.
Okay. When I was back in University Petronas, there is one subject that was offered for our student, engineering students. We call it as engineering team project, ETP. And then this engineering team project is not only for chemical engineering student, it's actually for all the students from various engineering discipline. Even actually in UTP as well, because we have applied chemistry and applied physics, so they offered science team project, STP. STP. So, but then what I did is, during the last time, I requested, because last time we have so one supervisor can take 5 students. One supervisor can take 5 students. But last time I requested, because I want to do this service learning, so I requested 30 students, and I call up maybe roughly about 5 to 6 lecturers come together, and then they become the supervisor for these students. So what we did is we brought the students into the village. We brought them into the village, and then each of the group of 5 students, they will visit 5 houses. They will visit 5 houses and go and, you know, at the same, of course, is visit, and we bring together some, because the villages over there, it consists a lot of women, ladies, older people, and then and they're not that I think among the poor community. So we brought them we brought them some makanan, jajan dan sebagainya, then we brought and we passed to them while visiting the house. And then while they visited the house, they talk to the villagers from house to house. For example, like how they are doing around. So it's actually teaching the student how to spot the problem, identify the problem of the villagers. So from that, of course, they collect a lot of problems, and after that, they will try to identify which particular problem that really need engineering solution. So we came out, I think, out of that 30 group of students, they came out with, I think, 5 innovations. One of it is actually they call it ultrasound blind stick. Ultrasound blind stick, because it's helping a blind old lady who is also deaf, who cannot, who is also deaf. So with that ultrasound blind stick, it helps the lady, you know, when she walk around and she knows that, all right, she's hitting somewhere, so it make her so that she can turn around. And then also there is another innovation that they came out is, for example, like solar dryer for the asam glugor. So there is one type of food that they need to dry. They used to use solar drying, just simple drying, put under the sun. But this group of students, they come up with a cupboard that is powered by solar. They call it solar dryer assisted. So it doesn't have to, because it helps the villagers not to simply just, you know, when it's rain, so they need to pull it and take it and put it under keep it away, right? But now they can just keep it under this cupboard, so it's safe from raining and any other weather. So this is the process of how we train the student to think through solving the problem while looking at while giving service to others. So that is actually the concept of service learning. Because service learning, it could be also, for example, like we just offer helps. That is also part of service learning. But when we want to integrate the knowledge of science and technology and engineering to the student, so we give a specific advice to the student, instruction to the student. It have to be engineering-based solution. So this is where the students start to discover the real engineering-related problem and come up with the prototype. Also, there is another house receive automated wheelchair, something like that. So the student develop themselves throughout the 14 weeks, just to make sure that the villagers receive it nicely lah. So straight away can use. So that is one of the practices that they did. I think Dr. Roel also did something on water filter in Lombok. I think Dr. Roel, am I right? You
Yeah, you remember that? Yes. They did some.
Yeah, so that is part of also service learning, engineering service learning that he did back there.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much for all the discussion and your the sharing of the knowledge and ideas. It is a blessing for us to have all of you as speakers. Thank you for Dr. Fadli Azizan, and thank you for Dr. Muhammad Oil Bilad. And of course, thank you for my college, Dr. Dwi Wahyudiati MPD, to have all of you. And thank you to all of the participants. We now reached the end of the session. We have to wrap it up and to close the discussion. And I hope you enjoy such. I enjoy this discussion. Actually, we can talk hours and hours about research and about all of these things, since it is really enlightened us and improve our mindset and skills. Of course, I wish that we can have a future discussion about other topics and various topics, which is really needed in sharing our knowledge. And of course, we really hope that we can have some agreement about this later on to join our partnership as educators. And then thank you to all of the participants, all of the speakers for your time. It's been an honor for us and a blessed to have all of you here. Please, each of you, the speakers, give a short close statements for us today. We start from Mr. Dr. Muhammad Royal Bilad. Please.
Okay. Thank you, the chairman. I will reiterate again that I'm very glad to be here speaking to many lecturers, many students. It's a little bit hard to speak with very diverse audience, different interests, different background, but I hope the discussion was quite nice. And I think when Mataram can start this kind of develop this kind of ecosystem, okay, discussion, there are plenty of academics like Dr. Tazli and many other our college that actually can share the things, their experience, and particularly when you said you are developing roadmap in curriculum, in research, and this is a good moment to involve more people who have been through that path earlier. That's it. To all the students, we mentioned about how important it is for a lecturer to master the subject they want to teach, and also knows the methodology to deliver those subjects. Above all, there are many of tools mentioned by Dr. Tazli. All of those also require mastery. Okay, so it's not like so the rule of lecturer in student-centered learning will be even more central to be able to do that in more productive manner. Okay, that's all from me. Thank you.
Please, Muhammad.
My last closing statement is actually when we first thing first, we have to actually look back at why in the first place we choose to become educator. So when we are passionate with what we are doing, of course we want to learn and do something different and to make different to our students. Because I think the most important part here, when we choose to become educator, I think I always highlight also to our Malaysian counterparts, educators, trying to tell them that whenever that we choose, to become educator, of course we have to make difference, and we have to make we have to be the best. We try to be extraordinary, especially as a Muslim. For example, we need to learn how to be an extraordinary person and who could actually serve and contribute to the community. In doing so, we cannot just simply do because people instruct us, or it's just because of our KPI, or it's just because that, okay, my boss asked me to do so. It is because it comes from our heart. It comes from our passion that we want to make sure that our students in the future, they become the future ready workers who can contribute and solve the problem that we are facing right now and even in the future. With that, only then we realize it is a big amanah, satu amanah yang sangat besar kepada kita sebagai pendidik, and this is where actually we may want to improve the practice bit by bit, slowly but surely. Okay, so I think that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. The last closing statement from Mrs. Tuyo Hidayati.
Terima kasih. Untuk closing statement ini untuk seluruh partisipan, tentunya ada yang dari guru ya, kemudian juga dari mahasiswa. Satu hal yang ingin saya katakan bahwa tugas kita baik itu menjadi seorang guru maupun sebagai mahasiswa ya, tidak hanya yang jurusan kimia atau partisipan yang dari jurusan lainnya, tugas kita adalah belajar. Kemudian setelah kita belajar, kita mengimplementasikan apa yang sudah kita peroleh. Nah, setelah itu tugas kita sekarang adalah terjadi perubahan paradigma, tidak hanya mengajar, tetapi juga menjadi seorang peneliti. Karena itu sangat penting, Bapak Ibu, adik-adik semua, kita mulai menanamkan dalam diri kita bahwa tugas saya sekarang tidak hanya belajar atau menggali pengetahuan, keterampilan maupun afektif kita, tetapi juga bagaimana kita belajar untuk mulai menulis ide-ide kreatif kita, mulai dari permasalahan, kita lakukan penelitian, bisa kolaborasi dengan dosen, ya, bisa kolaborasi dengan teman sejawat ataupun lainnya, sehingga bisa mengupgrade kemampuan kita. Jadi kita tidak hanya bersifat pasif dalam membelajarkan, tetapi juga kita bisa men-sharing apa yang kita, kompetensi yang kita miliki dari ide itu bermanfaat bagi orang banyak. Dan tentunya kalau kita misalnya di Indonesia, kita bisa publish artikel paling tidak di Sinta, baik itu Sinta 2, 1, 2, dan seterusnya. Dan goal terbesarnya bagi kita tidak hanya bagi mahasiswa, ya, guru, terlebih lagi dosen, kita bisa artikel kita di jurnal Internasional, apa yang sudah disampaikan dan diskusi kita pada hari ini. Dan terima kasih juga kepada Pak Tadris Azizan, ya, Pak Roil Bila, semoga di lain waktu bisa kembali lagi memberikan sharing informasi terkait dengan pengetahuan, pengalaman, dan hal lainnya, dan juga ke depannya bisa kita melanjutkan kolaborasi, mungkin penelitian antar dosen dengan di Malaysia maupun di Brunei Darussalam. Terima kasih atas waktunya, dan semoga di lain waktu bisa kembali.
Okay, thank you very much for the closing statement. Now I will ask to all of the participants. Saya akan meminta untuk seluruh partisipan mengaktifkan videonya. We'll take another photo session for the participants. We'll take a screenshot for all of you. Please, can we arrange to take part? Have you? 1, 2, 3 for the first slide. Is it done? Okay. Next, for the second slide, we will take another picture. Okay. Sudah? Sampai berapa? 3. And then the last slide. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much for all of you. Thank you very much again to all of the speakers, all of the participants, all distinguished participants who have attended our international webinar today. We wish that we will help another international webinar and turn to all of you. Nice to have you, Mr. Dr. Tadris Azizan, and Dr. Muhammad Raihbilan.
Okay, thank you very much for all our speakers today, for Dr. Muhammad Roil Bila, for Dr. Muhammad Tadris Azizan, and also Dr. Dwi Wahyudiati. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is the end of International webinar today. We are from committee want to thank you to all honorable guests, lecturers, speaker, and also all of participants. I hope you enjoy this webinar, and thank you very much for all your attention. See you on other webinar. And also, I am as your master of ceremony today. I feel so sorry for all some mistake that I do before. Akhirul kalam, wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Terima kasih Pak Roil.
Sama-sama Pak ya. Saya ini lagi di luar Brunei, saya lagi di Malaysia.
Pak Dokter.
Terima kasih semua. Assalamualaikum.
Okay. Now all of you can leave the room. Thank you very much.
Azizan.
Stop recording.